Chapter 14:15. Hearing Long Yu's conditions, Yu Wufang began to consider it. 6 times the amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy would give the bone race many opportunities to develop. At the very least, it would allow the majority of their members to smoothly grow. The members of the bone race, as long as they smoothly grew to adulthood, would basically have the cultivation of a 2-star emperor to a 3-star emperor. And for them to grow, they needed enough heaven and earth spiritual energy. As for the next level, what they needed was not just heaven and earth spiritual energy. Unless they obtained a creation item, they could only rely on their own hard work and luck. If they had an epiphany, it was also possible to rise to another level. But the difficulty of epiphany was too high. This kind of situation was too rare. Back in the ancient ruins of the galaxy, not a single person in the bone race had been able to have an epiphany. At that time, they could occasionally find 1 or 2 creation items and use them to increase the cultivation of the top geniuses of the clan. For example, Yu Wufang was currently at the level of a 5-star emperor. After coming to Long Yu's small world, Yu Wufang had also exploded and increased his cultivation a bit. From this, it could be seen that Yu Wufang's martial talent was indeed very strong. If he had enough cultivation resources, Yu Wufang might not be any worse than Consort Yu, Frost, or Imperial Wind. After all, Yu Wufang was the most talented person in the bone race. Although there were only 300,000 members of the bone race left, in reality, there were still many geniuses. When the bone race was destroyed, those who had the qualifications to be protected and passed on were all of the most outstanding bloodlines of the clan. Now, in the bone race, every ordinary member of the bone race, if compared to the human race and the monster race, their martial talent would definitely be among the best. At the very least, they would be able to reach the level of Black Knife and Yeeziwei. Because of this, Long Yu had to keep a close eye on these fellows. Otherwise, if he wasn't careful and didn't control them, it was very likely that they would bring great trouble to the human race and the monster race. Thinking of this, Long Yu felt that it was a pity. If they weren't of the same race, their hearts would surely be different. Otherwise, he would have absorbed these 300,000 bone race clansmen into the forces of the Void Galaxy. With some training, the overall combat power of these 300,000 bone race clansmen could be 100 times that of the Heavenly Dragon Army. It was a pity that Long Yu couldn't control such a powerful force at the moment. Once the other party gained power, they would definitely pose a threat to the Void Galaxy. If there were any accidents, Long Yu couldn't afford the loss, so at least for now, he couldn't put this plan into practice. Yu Wufang thought for a moment. It was difficult to make a decision. Fortunately, the entire bone race was under Yu Wufang's control, so he was the only one making the decision. If there were more decision-makers, it would be even more difficult to make a decision. Long Yu was not in a hurry. He was carefully observing the 300,000 members of the bone race. Most of the members of the bone race were ordinary bone warriors with more than 100 bones. These members of the bone race accounted for 99% of the 300,000 bone race clansmen. Only the remaining 1%, about 3,000, were royal members of the bone race like Yu Wufang. According to the history books, the royal members of the bone race were composed of 460 bones. But now, the royal members of the bone race had more than 460 bones. Among them, Yu Wufang had 578 bones. He was one of the strongest in this group of bone race clansmen. Besides him, there were 3 other experts, each with more than 700 bones. Long Yu now roughly understood why the number of bones each of them had was different from the number recorded in the history book. In the history books, the number of ordinary bone warriors, royal members, and royal members of the bone race was fixed. 103, 460, and 3,600. But now, their numbers were greater than what was recorded in the history book. This was because of hybridization. In the past, the social hierarchy of the bone race was strict. It was absolutely impossible for ordinary bone warriors to have children with the royal members of the bone race. But after the bone race suffered a devastating blow, in order to preserve the continuation of the bone race, ordinary bone warriors, royal members, and royal members of the bone race began to marry each other. Thus, different members of the bone race with different numbers of bones were born. Among the 300,000 bone race clansmen led by Yu Wufang, although Yu Wufang did not have the highest number of bones, he had the purest royal bloodline. As his martial arts realm increased, the number of bones in his body could also increase. This was because of his bloodline. But the three geniuses of the bone race with more than 700 bones were not very pure. As their martial arts realm increased, the number of bones in their body was limited. Roughly speaking, as long as Yu Wufang entered the ruler's secret realm, he could surpass them and become the strongest expert of the bone race. Of course, right now, the three geniuses of the bone race with more than 700 bones were only at the level of the 3-star emperor or 4-star emperor. Compared to Yu Wufang, their strength was much lower. Long Yu's understanding of the bone race was much deeper than before. After all, they had been in his little world for a long time. There were some things that Long Yu had been secretly paying attention to. Of course, Long Yu knew everything that was going on in his little world. He had been thinking of ways to make these bone race clansmen work for him. Unfortunately, he had not come up with a better way. There was always a lot of risk involved, so he could not make up his mind. Since that was the case, he would let them stay in the little world for now. When Long Yu thought of a way to deal with them, he would come back and deal with them. Before that, he could dig out the unending rank martial skill jade slips they had. This would be very useful to Long Yu and the forces in the galaxy. Just the two moves that Long Yu had obtained, Fighting Mad Celestial Body and Limitless Grasp, had greatly increased Long Yu's combat strength. In fact, Fighting Mad Celestial Body had become his greatest asset in fighting those above his level. While Long Yu was thinking about this problem, Yu Wufang was also thinking about it. About an hour later, Yu Wufang finally made up his mind. He sent a divine will transmission to Long Yu. In that case, we'll do as you said, my lord. We'll permanently provide 6 times the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and exchange it for 3 unbounded martial skill jade slips. According to the usual practice, we will be the ones to choose the jade slip. All right, it's settled then. Long Yu narrowed his eyes and nodded in agreement. In fact, for Long Yu, who possessed the heavenly spirit source, it wasn't difficult for him to provide the 300,000 bone race clansmen with 6 times the amount of world energy. But 3 unending rank martial skill jade slips were still very useful to Long Yu. In terms of value, Long Yu definitely had a huge advantage. If this was the case in the outside world, who knew how many people would fight for it? Unfortunately, Long Yu couldn't just let the bone race clansmen go. So Long Yu was the only one who could take advantage of this. The reason Long Yu didn't want to trade more was because he wanted to take it slow. After all, unending rank martial skill jade slips weren't cabbages. Long Yu didn't want to squeeze too much out of the bone race clansmen. The fewer unending rank martial skill jade slips they had, the more likely things would go wrong. Long Yu was well aware of that. After all, they had to give Long Yu an unending rank martial skill jade slip every year. If they had too few jade slips, they would definitely panic and try to find a way out. Who knew when they might cause trouble for Long Yu? That wouldn't be good. Therefore, 3 unending rank martial skill jade slips should be within their acceptable range, and would satisfy Long Yu's current needs. It was a feasible deal. Now that the two sides had reached an agreement, it was time to deliver the jade slip. Yu Wufang had long since prepared the 3 unbounded martial skill jade slips, and now he handed them over to Long Yu. Long Yu drew on the power of his world, causing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to gather around him. It didn't take long for the 6 times the amount of heaven and earth spirit energy to arrive. Long Yu didn't waste any time. Once the transaction was complete, He took the unending rank martial skill jade slips and left. Next, the Bone Race clansmen erupted in cheers. Ever since they had been given 10 times the amount of heaven and earth spirit energy, their days had been pretty good. They all cherished those days. Now that they had received 6 times the amount of heaven and earth spirit energy, they knew that their days would only get better and better in the future. Although they were still imprisoned in Long Yu's minor world, at least nothing had happened here. It was a relatively safe place. If they left this minor world, they would be in true danger. There would be outsiders everywhere, and no one would be able to protect them. Now there was Long Yu who could protect their existence, so that they could at least continue to live. Long Yu's figure flickered. Enveloped by world energy, he returned to the minor world. Behind Tang Qin and Traceless White Cloud's home, he reappeared in the cultivation room. At this time, Traceless White Cloud and Long Zitian were still happily chatting. Outside in the courtyard, Tang Qin had also joined in on the conversation. Long Yu didn't care what they were talking about. In any case, he just wanted to know the result. If Long Zitian couldn't recover his memories, then everything would be for naught. In comparison, he was more concerned about the 3 unending rank martial skill jade slips he had obtained. After all, they were closely related to him. 2 Yao martial skills and 1 universal martial skill. Long Yu took a look and was immediately disappointed. Including the universal martial skill, none of these 3 martial skills were of any use to him. Of the 2 Yao martial skills, 1 was offensive and 1 was defensive. Giving them to Red Oriole and the others wouldn't be a bad idea, but they were useless to Long Yu. He wasn't a Yao, so he couldn't cultivate their racial martial skills. As for the general martial skill, it was a body technique martial skill, and at the current stage, Long Yu did not really need it. After all, he had the Void Nether Dragon Blade, and could teleport long distances. As for short distances, he also had the Berserk Divine Walk movement technique. Chapter 14:16. Although they were of no use to Long Yu, they were very useful to other people in the Void Galaxy. First of all, one of the demon martial skills was a common control martial skill of the demon race. If Red Oriole practiced it, she could use it with Long Yu's boundless grasp to make her enemies suffer. There was also an offensive martial technique that could be used with Ice-type divine characters. As a high-grade unbounded martial technique, its attack power would definitely not be disappointing. Furthermore, Ice-type divine characters usually had some sort of control effect. There aren't many demon cultivators with Ice attribute in the Void Galaxy, Long Yu thought to himself. He thought of the pair of new students in the Demigod Institute, namely Tian Qingxue, one of the twin demons. In the Demigod Institute, the number of demon cultivators was about the same as that of humans. Among those who had participated in Long Yu's auction of the Ice Essence, only Tian Qingxue was a demon cultivator. This Ice-attributed fiend race martial technique could be sold at a suitable time. That way, Long Yu wouldn't have a copy of it, because the martial skill jade slips could only be copied after the cultivator had practiced them to a certain level. If he sold it now, he would have to sell it completely. It would be a pity. Long Yu thought for a moment. Perhaps he could find someone in the Void Galaxy to practice this martial skill first, and then sell it. That would be better. There were still 2 months to go before the new batch of Divine Enlightenment wine would be on the shelves in the Demigods College. During this period, Long Yu probably wouldn't be able to earn enough battlefield credit. Therefore, selling a high-grade unbounded martial skill was also a means to him. In any case, Long Yu would definitely make a huge profit. While he was thinking, Long Zitian suddenly ran in from outside. "Kid, let's go. There's an accident outside." Long Zitian's face turned a little serious, and he called out to Long Yu. "Okay." Long Yu didn't ask what had happened. He would know once he left this place. On the other hand, the Nether Dragon Blade didn't react at all. It seemed that Long Zitian and the Heavenly Dragon Army members had some special communication method. It seemed that Long Zai-Tian had already bid farewell to Bai Yunzong. Long Yu waved at Bai Yunzong and Tang Qin before using the power of the world to wrap Long Zai-Tian and return to the outside of the small world. The scene before their eyes changed, and very quickly, Long Yu and Long Zai-Tian returned to Long Zai-Tian's room. "Little Su, is everything all right?" Long Yu winked at Little Void. The Void Nether Dragon blade flew to Long Yu's side and sent a telepathic message. "Something seems to have happened outside, but it shouldn't be a big problem. It's not dangerous, but it seems to be a bit troublesome." "Yes." Long Yu nodded his head and asked Long Zai-Tian, "How is it? Did you recall any memories?" "No, Bai Yunzong told me a lot of things in the past, but unfortunately, I can't remember anything. Let's talk about this later. There are still people outside who need to be rescued." As Long Zai-Tian spoke, he prepared to run out. Long Yu naturally followed him. After all, they were still in the depths of the battlefield of the alien race. It was normal to encounter some accidents, but he didn't know what had happened. Very soon, Long Yu followed Long Zai-Tian to the command center area. Then, he looked outside and saw a familiar team being surrounded and attacked by a large group of Fire God race soldiers. That familiar team happened to be the army of rulers that Long Yu had just rescued from the encirclement of the Fire God race. Now there were about 5,000 people left. It seemed that in just a short period of time, nearly 1,000 people had been besieged and killed by the army of the Fire God race. What's going on with this army of rulers? Why are they always being besieged by the army of the Fire God race? Long Yu's head was full of cold sweat. Wasn't the luck of this army of rulers too bad? He had just rescued them from the encirclement, and it didn't take long for them to be surrounded again. This luck, or was this army of rulers targeted by the people of the Fire God race? That was the only possibility. As for traitors, they wouldn't appear in the war against the mutated race because the difference between the races was too great. Now, it depended on what the Sky Dragon army could do. They definitely had to rescue them, but the key was how to rescue them. Directly from the front? Anyway, the current matter had nothing to do with Long Yu. He just needed to watch here, collect information, and see the overall strength of the Fire God race army. Long Zai-Tian quickly issued one order after another. The most important thing was to collect information. Only by knowing oneself and the enemy could one win every battle. The reason why the Sky Dragon army could have such a prestigious reputation was inseparable from its strong ability to collect information. In the Sky Dragon army, the intelligence team immediately began to act. Of course, Long Yu couldn't see the process of this group of people's actions. He only knew that after a while, Long Zai-Tian had obtained most of the information he wanted to know. Right now, the steel fortress that Long Yu was hiding in was also completely hidden in the nearby void. The encirclement of the human race's ruler army and the surrounding Fire God race army didn't know that there was such a steel fortress eyeing them covetously. The Sky Dragon army had enough time to ensure their own safety and choose how to rescue the human ruler army. This Fire God race's Juggernaut Legion has 4 7th-phase Juggernauts, 6 6th-phase Juggernauts, and 24 5th-phase Juggernauts. The rest are all 4th-phase Juggernauts and below. There are a total of 8,000 people, and 7,500 of them haven't reached the level of Juggernaut. This is a standard Fire God race Juggernaut Legion. Long Zai-Tian announced the information obtained by the intelligence team and revealed a smile. "Since it's like this, our Sky Dragon army is going to fight again. All combat teams get ready to move and split up to carry out a sneak attack. Strive to get rid of the Fire God race commander and deputy commander as fast as possible. Operation Decapitation, begin." It could be seen that this definitely wasn't the first time the Sky Dragon army had done something like this. With a steel fortress that could turn invisible, it would be easy for him to carry out sneak attack. How did he get this steel fortress? In any case, it had something to do with Long Zai-Tian. The role of this iron fortress on the battlefield of the other races was absolutely comparable to those of the human race's official battlefield fortresses. In fact, it was even better. After all, the invisible steel fortress could be used in many places and produce miraculous effect. Long you just needed to watch the show. In the void in front of them, the Fire God race ruler army was confident of victory. They constantly attacked the surrounded human ruler army. Both sides fought back and forth, and fire attribute divine runes filled the entire battlefield. At every moment, there were creatures dying in the battle. Although he was very far away, Long Yu could still feel the somber atmosphere of the battlefield. Every member of the human ruler army was using all their strength to block the Fire God race's attack. However, it was really difficult to completely block the Fire God race's attack with just their defense alone. Countless flames came from all directions. In the human ruler army, the 7th phase Great Ruler Army commanders all joined the battle. They constantly charged in different directions. Every time they charged, they could use the tyrannical berserk divine runes to blow up several Fire God race rulers. However, after blowing up a few, 4th and 5th phase Great Ruler Realm Fire God race members immediately joined forces to attack him. Under the joint attack of the other party, the human commander had no choice but to retreat and try to break out of the encirclement in other directions. However, the Fire God race's encirclement was extremely tight. In every direction, there were 4th and 5th phase Great Ruler Realm squad leaders and captains intercepting them. Even the human commander couldn't directly break out of the encirclement. Moreover, once the human commander and other human experts showed signs of breaking out of the encirclement, the 7th phase Great Ruler Realm experts in the Fire God race's army would immediately take action. This was completely an airtight cage that enveloped the entire human army. There was no chance of escape. And at this time, the Sky Dragon Legion arrived. In the Sky Dragon Legion, there were several teams in charge of the beheading operation. Although these teams didn't have very strong existences, with the strongest being at the 5th phase Great Ruler Realm, when they joined forces, they could kill a 7th phase Great Ruler Realm expert from the Fire God race. Long Yu carefully observed the battlefield. Soon, he finally saw the figures of the beheading operation team. When Long Yu saw the figures of this team, the Fire God race's ruler army naturally saw them as well. However, it was too late for them to react. In the Sky Dragon Legion, each of these beheading operation teams had a divine grade absolute beginning treasure. Moreover, each of them had awakened a divine grade absolute beginning treasure to the 6th level or above. In other words, the actual combat strength of each of these teams was comparable to Red Oriole's level. Each beheading operation team had 7 to 12 people. The team with fewer people was responsible for the 6th phase Great Ruler Realm Fire God race leader, while the team with more people was responsible for the 7th phase Great Ruler Realm Fire God race army commander. With the division of labor, each team's responsibility was extremely clear. In total, there were 20 beheading operation teams with a total of about 200 people. Without a doubt, these 200 people were the Sky Dragon Legion's elite teams. Many strategic missions relied on them to complete. For example, the beheading operation right now. Facing the 8,000-strong Fire God race's ruler realm army head-on was definitely not a good choice. Even if they could win that way, the Sky Dragon Legion would suffer great losses. And by carrying out the beheading operation first, they could avoid large-scale casualties on their side. It could be said that the 20 beheading operation teams were the vanguard of the Sky Dragon Legion against the other foreign races. They were the absolute main force. Basically, half of the Sky Dragon Legion's experts were concentrated in these beheading operation teams. Chapter 14-17. Once the Heaven Dragon Legion's execution team appeared, the entire situation on the battlefield changed. When the 7th and 6th phase dominators of the Fire God race were entangled, the experts of the human race's ruler legions that were originally surrounded began to break out of the encirclement. Attacked from both inside and outside, the Fire God race's ruler legions immediately fell into chaos. This execution team is not bad. Long Yu's eyes lit up. This kind of team that specialized in dealing with opponents with high combat strength should be formed among the Void Galaxy's factions. On the battlefield, this kind of team seemed to be able to create a lot of value. It was much more valuable than letting these experts with high combat strength lead other teams. In Long Yu's eyes, many of the execution teams had already stalled the experts of the Fire God race with high battle prowess and completely suppressed them the moment they took action. Even if there were ordinary Fire God race warriors coming over to harass them, they would not be able to rescue their team leaders. Every member of the execution team had a divine absolute beginning rank awakened to the 6th phase and above. They also cultivated a unified martial path secret technique. The effect of this martial path secret technique seemed to be able to increase the power of a divine absolute beginning rank. This was the unified configuration of the execution team in the Heaven Dragon Legion. Martial path secret techniques combined with divine absolute beginning rank allowed them to have unparalleled offensive power. It had a powerful effect when dealing with enemies with high combat strength suddenly. In almost an instant, 2 6th phase dominators of the Fire God race were directly killed. Their corpses were taken away by the execution team to prevent them from being lost in the chaos. There were many good things in the corpses and small world remains of the 6th phase dominators of the Fire God race that could not be wasted. Moreover, it was related to the problem of more convenient distribution after the battle. A mere quarter of an hour later, Long Yu discovered that the beheading teams had practically finished off their opponent. Among the Fire God race's dominator legions, the only one left was the strongest commander, who was at the 7th and 6th phase great dominators. There were a total of 24 execution team members dealing with this commander. However, they were unable to kill him in a short time. After all, the difference in combat strength between the two sides was too great. However, at this time, the commander and deputy commander of the human ruler's army finally broke through the encirclement and headed straight for their direction. The 3 commanders and vice-commanders of the human ruler's army were all 7th phase rulers. As soon as they entered the battlefield, they immediately suppressed the enemy's commander. Together with the 24 members of the decapitation operation, they immediately heavily injured the enemy with the speed of lightning. The other Fire God tribe cultivators around the Fire God tribe's chief legion commander couldn't help at all. In a battle of this level, only the strong could affect the battlefield. The Fire God race's legion commander's entire body turned into flames. He actually underwent a nirvana, and all the serious injuries on his body were immediately healed. However, he didn't dare to continue fighting. He immediately turned around and wanted to activate spatial divine symbols to escape. It was very clear that since these execution teams had suddenly appeared nearby, there would definitely be other powerhouses hiding. If it didn't leave now, it would be too late. It would lose its life here. However, it was too late for it to run now. Intercept team. Long Zai Tian gave the order from the central command area of the Steel Fortress. Immediately, another Sky Dragon Legion's branch team moved. This intercept team didn't have many people, only a mere 7. However, each of them had a very powerful technique, which was spatial interception. The technique they had was similar to the absolute space domain that Long Yu had displayed with the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. It could seal off all spatial divine symbols in the area, making it impossible for anyone to use them. Thus, it had the effect of intercepting the enemy and preventing them from escaping. The surrounding space was almost immediately completely sealed. No one could use spatial divine symbols in the area, including the Fire God race's 7th phase ruler's chief legion commander. The Fire God race's chief legion commander immediately gave the order for all members of the Fire God race's ruler's army to self-destruct. The reason why he knew this order was because many members of the Fire God race had begun to self-destruct. It was probably because they saw that they couldn't escape and were risking their lives to drag a group of people to hell with them. However, it was a pity that Long Zai Tian had already anticipated this situation. In many cases, when there was no hope, the fire god race would self-destruct. How could Long Zai Tian not be on guard against this move of his opponent? At this moment, the wretched-looking short young man stood up. With a flash, he left the steel fortress and went to the center of the battlefield. Then, he raised his hands, and a magical and strange power instantly covered the entire battlefield. Boundary of silence. This mysterious energy instantly covered the entire battlefield, and then it caused all the energy in the battlefield to undergo some sort of strange change. Everyone on the battlefield felt as if the energy within their bodies had suddenly fallen silent. Not to mention detonating themselves, they couldn't even execute some powerful techniques at all. Boundary of silence, a first-grade god formation. When this technique was used, Long Yu's eyes lit up. As expected of a first-grade god formation, the legendary bridge to the demigod realm. This technique was indeed powerful. As soon as the boundary of silence was used, the entire battlefield became silent. No one could use too much power, and the power in their bodies became silent. The battlefield, which was originally in full swing, instantly became deserted. Get ready, let's go. With Long Zai Tian's order, the main force of the Sky Dragon Legion finally set off at this time. Almost in an instant, they descended on the battlefield and mixed with the surrounding fire god race warriors. The reason why the Heavenly Dragon Legion descended from the sky was because of the Silence Ward. With the Silence Ward enveloping the entire area, no one could use any powerful means. The Heavenly Dragon Legion's warriors were not afraid of being killed by the 8,000 warriors of the Fire God clan. Then, the boundary of silence began to change. The boundary of silence in the entire battlefield was directly divided into 9 parts, and the boundary of silence in each part began to change differently. The Sky Dragon Legion had practiced such changes countless times before. When a part of the boundary of silence weakened or even failed, the members of the Sky Dragon Legion in that area would immediately launch a fatal attack on the Fire God race warriors around them. The Fire God race warriors didn't know when the boundary of silence would weaken or strengthen. Often, after suffering a wave of attacks and killing hundreds of them, just when they wanted to fight back, the boundary of silence in that area would strengthen again, completely suppressing the power in their bodies. The boundary of silence in the 9 areas was constantly changing, weakening and strengthening, without the slightest pattern. In such changes, the number of the Fire God race dominating the army decreased sharply. At every moment, hundreds of Fire God race warriors died in the hands of the Sky Dragon Legion. This scene caused Long Yu to gasp in amazement. No wonder the Sky Dragon Legion could be invincible on the battlefield of the alien race. The mysterious effect of the Silent Barrier was a Grade 1 God formation. Coupled with their daily practice of this battle tactic, they had already perfected it a long time ago. Now that it was used, it undoubtedly produced a miraculous effect. Relying on the boundary of silence, the 9 battlefield areas were constantly changing. Every time the change began, the members of the Sky Dragon Legion were already aware of it and directly used their means to kill the Fire God race warriors. If the Fire God race warriors reacted half a beat too late, they could only be slaughtered. Moreover, because the changes of the boundary of silence had no pattern, only the Sky Dragon Legion soldiers who had practiced in advance could attack the fastest and most accurately. No matter how fast the Fire God race warriors reacted, they would still be half a beat too late. In a battle of this level, a blink of an eye would mean death. In the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, less than half of the 8,000 Fire God race sovereigns were left. Among them, the 7th and 6th phase Fire God race sovereigns were all dead. Not a single one survived. Without a leader, the Fire God race sovereign army became more and more chaotic, and their losses increased. Gradually, the boundary of silence was no longer needed. The situation on the battlefield had become completely one-sided. The fire god race's understanding of the power of the fire divine characters was very profound, but at this moment it was useless. At this point in the battle, there was no longer any suspense. The number of fire god race sovereigns continued to decrease. 4,000, 3,000, 2,000, 1,000. The remaining fire god race sovereigns would choose to self-detonate. Once the boundary of silence weakened, they would immediately self-detonate. It still caused some damage to the Sky Dragon Legion and the human race's sovereign army, but the damage was not great. This was because when the Sky Dragon Legion wiped out the Fire God race's sovereign army, they first eliminated the great sovereigns. The remaining ordinary Fire God race sovereigns wouldn't cause space-time turbulence when they self-detonated, so they weren't particularly powerful. If the great sovereigns self-detonated, the situation would be different. Therefore, this situation had to be stopped in advance. Clearly, the Sky Dragon Legion was very experienced in battle. Throughout the battle, although there were people who were seriously injured or even died because of a moment of carelessness, the number of casualties was not high. All in all, around 10 people had died and only a few dozen people were seriously injured. This was all because of the Fire God race's self-detonation. Otherwise, the Sky Dragon Legion wouldn't have suffered any casualties. However, in a battle, deaths were very common. Even an elite legion like the Sky Dragon Legion couldn't avoid losing people in a battle. Unless it was a battle like before, where the Sky Dragon Legion completely relied on an ambush to fight, that kind of situation was very rare. In many cases, in a head-on battle, it was already very impressive that the Sky Dragon Legion suffered such casualties. It could even be said that such a battle record would be enough for the Legion commander to brag about for a lifetime if it were any other sovereign army. However, on the Sky Dragon Legion's side, it was just a very ordinary annihilation battle under the command of Long Zitian. This was the elite of the human race's battlefield legion. Only with a first-class legion commander, first-class battle plan, first-class executors, and first-class combat power could one form a first-class legion on the battlefield. Chapter 14:18. At this point in the war, there was no longer any suspense. The Sky Dragon Legion defeated the Fire God race's ruler legion with an overwhelming advantage. For the human race legion that was surrounded by the Fire God race legion, this was the second time they had been rescued recently. They didn't know why they were so unlucky to always be besieged by the Fire God race. This time, if the Sky Dragon Legion hadn't happened to be nearby, their losses would have been extremely serious. It was even possible that the entire ruler legion would have been wiped out. Since they had won the battle, the next most important thing was to clean up the battlefield. As for the cleaning of the battlefield, the human race ruler legion didn't make any request. Instead, they gave the right to clean up to the Sky Dragon Legion. After all, the Sky Dragon Legion had saved their entire legion of more than 5,000 people. Naturally, they had to give the Sky Dragon Legion some gift. The resources of the Fire God race ruler legion belonged to the Sky Dragon Legion. This could be considered a convention between legions on the battlefield of the foreign races. Long Zitian quickly sent the logistics team out to collect the many corpses of the Fire God race legion and the cultivation resources. Long Yu was thinking that in order to prevent the human race army from being surrounded again, perhaps the other party could follow the Heavenly Dragon army, or be guided to this steel fortress. Unfortunately, Long Zitian didn't have this plan. Perhaps, apart from the people of the Sky Dragon Legion, very few people were qualified to enter this steel fortress. At the very least, Long Zitian wouldn't let any random human race ruler legion in. This was also one of the reasons why the Sky Dragon Legion was quite mysterious in the outside world. The things they harvested again were obviously less than the first time, but it was still a great harvest. The entire Sky Dragon Legion was full of joy. Long Zitian distributed the things again. This time, he also asked Long Yu to ask for something, but Long Yu didn't make any requests. He had previously distributed the spoils of war for free. It could be said that Long Zai Tian was polite to the guests, but if he accepted it now, it would seem a little too much. Anyway, Long Yu didn't lack these things, so he couldn't be bothered to owe Long Zai Tian a favor. Even if the other party admitted that he was his father, Long Yu would not rely on him. Moreover, Long Zai Tian was still in a state of amnesia, and the relationship between the two of them was still in an uncertain state. The normal rescue battle ended in just 6 hours, and the entire Fire God race's sovereign legion was completely annihilated. This place was not particularly far from the human race's outer domain galaxy. In other words, it would not be so easy for other experts of the Fire God clan to appear in the territory closer to the human clan. The next part of the journey could be said to be smooth sailing. However, for Long Yu, the next part of the journey was the most crucial step. This was because Long Yu was going to take Long Zaitian to see his mother, Bei Yuyao. Compared to White Cloud Track, Bei Yuyao clearly cared a lot more about Long Zaitian. To White Cloud, even if Long Zaitian didn't appear, his life was already set in stone. He would continue on this path. But it was not the case for Bei Yuyao. What choice Long Zaitian made would obviously determine the direction of Bei Yuyao's life in the future. For Bei Yuyao, the two most important people in her life were undoubtedly Long Zaitian and Long Yu. Go see the wife you mentioned. This is not urgent, but your distribution of the spoils of war last time has been decided. In the room, Long Zaitian smiled at Long Yu, then took out a storage ring and handed it to Long Yu. Long Yu took the storage ring and saw that there were 3 corpses of the Fire God race at the 5th level Sovereign Realm. After all, he only watched the battle from the sidelines. The Sky Dragon Legion giving him the corpses of the 5th level Sovereign Realm Fire God race was already quite good. Although he didn't get the corpses of the 7th or 6th level Fire God race's Great Sovereign Realm, Long Yu was already satisfied. After all, this was something he obtained without any effort. He was already very embarrassed to accept it, so what qualifications did he have to ask for anything else? There weren't many 7th or 6th level Fire God race's Great Sovereign Realm corpses to begin with. There were many people in the Sky Dragon Legion who needed them, including the wretched short youth who used the silent barrier. Long Yu still didn't know the guy's name, but it wasn't important. In any case, the other party was a core member of the Sky Dragon Legion. In the future, Long Yu might not have any interactions with him. If the other party didn't take the initiative to introduce him, Long Yu wouldn't ask. Long Yu sealed the 3 5th level Sovereign Realm Fire God race corpses in the Dragon Bone Ancient Tower. He discovered that it would take 9 days to transform one of them. This should be related to the strength of the corpses. It would take him about a day to transform a 3rd level Fire God race corpse into a darkness creature. A 5th level Fire God race corpse's basic strength was about 10 times that of a 3rd level Dominator, so the transformation would take about 9 to 10 days. If he wanted to transform a 7th level Dominator into a darkness creature, it would take about a day. In other words, it would take 3 months. This was a bit too long for Long Yu, but it wasn't necessary. After all, he wouldn't be of much help. A 5th level Dominator darkness creature was more than enough for him to deal with normal situations. The Sky Dragon Legion's gains had nothing to do with Long Yu. Indeed, from this, Long Yu could tell that if he could win consecutively on the battlefield of the foreign races, and continuously defeat his opponents, the benefits he would obtain would be extremely shocking. Not to mention anything else, just the benefits brought to the Heavenly Dragon Army by these 2 waves of Fire God race's Master Legions were worth at least hundreds of millions of battlefield military merit points. Although the entire Sky Dragon Legion was divided equally among the tens of thousands of people, each person would at least obtain tens of thousands of battlefield merit points. This was already a huge amount of wealth for ordinary dominators. If Long Zai Tian really needed cultivation resources at certain times, he would just have to come out and fight and kill a Dominator Legion, and he would immediately obtain a lot of battlefield merit points. However, if it wasn't a special situation, Long Zai-Tian wouldn't take all the spoils for himself. In the Sky Dragon Legion, every member needed to cultivate and increase their strength. Only then would they be able to fight against stronger outsiders in the future and obtain even more benefit. After all, Long Yu was now someone who wanted to develop his own faction. He was quite willing to research the various models of the Sky Dragon Legion. This included the construction of the patrol team, logistics team, execution team, etc., which gave Long Yu some inspiration. In the future, when he was developing his faction in the Void Galaxy, he could use this model to construct the framework of the entire organization. Since he wanted to develop his own faction, he naturally needed a complete organization structure. He couldn't keep it scattered like before. Otherwise, if he was attacked by an opponent, the entire Void Galaxy would probably be in a mess. Although the Void Galaxy definitely wouldn't be discovered by any hostile faction at this stage and thus attract any threats, there would come a day when the Void Galaxy would face all kinds of opponents. Long Yu had to be prepared for that. Long Yu sealed the 3 corpses of the fire gods into the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. The consciousness of the ancient Dragon Bone Tower was also quite happy. After all, this meant that the ancient Dragon Bone Tower's ability had been strengthened, and it could help Long Yu more. Although the consciousness of the ancient Dragon Bone Tower was very cold and mechanical, there was no doubt that it was loyal to Long Yu. It would still be very happy to be able to help Long Yu more. Speaking of which, Long Yu hadn't given this consciousness a name yet. After thinking about it, Long Yu decided to call it Little Tower. Little Void and Little Tower, the consciousness of the 2 battle weapons, could be said to be Long Yu's closest friends. The thoughts of the 3 were completely interconnected. If Long Yu wanted them to do something, he didn't need to say it out loud. He just needed to think about it. This was the benefit of being compatible with the battle weapon to the unparalleled level. The only thing that puzzled Long Yu was that he hadn't awakened the Netherworld Dragon Blade to level 1. Logically speaking, awakening the level 1 Absolute Beginning Divine Grade should be very easy. Could it be that because Little Void is a special Absolute Beginning Divine Grade, it's harder to awaken than other Absolute Beginning Divine Grade weapons? Long Yu thought to himself. The more he thought about it, the more likely it was. After all, the effect of awakening Little Void to level 1 was equivalent to awakening other Absolute Beginning Divine Grade weapons to level 6 or even level 7. Could it be that the difficulty of awakening was similar? This could also explain why Long Yu hadn't been able to awaken the Netherworld Dragon Blade for so long. Shaking his head, Long Yu didn't think too much about this. After all, the awakening of an Absolute Beginning Divine Grade weapon wasn't something that a cultivator could control. It could only happen naturally. Next, Long Yu's thoughts were still on Long Zai-Tian. After seeing the white clouds, Long Zai-Tian didn't remember anything in the past. It could be seen that he was either pretending or he had completely lost his memory. If that was the case, even if he met Bei Yuyao, it would be difficult for him to remember anything. If that was the case, wouldn't Bei Yuyao be happy for nothing? But no matter what, now that he had found Long Zai-Tian, Long Yu couldn't hide it from Bei Yuyao. No matter what the result was, he had to let them meet. As for the result, it wasn't something that Long Yu could control. Even if he didn't succeed in the end, there shouldn't be any regrets for Bei Yuyao. As Long Yu thought to himself, he searched for Bei Yuyao's location in the small world. Then, he wrapped himself and Long Zai-Tian in the world energy and moved towards his small world. Once again, they arrived at the center of the new Martial World, on the continent of the Northern Snow Empire. Chapter 1419. Long Zai-Tian and Long Yu once again returned to the small world inside the 9 Serenities prison tablet. During this time, Long Yu knew that his mother, Bei Yuyao, had been traveling around the new martial world. To ensure her safety, Yu Hanxin sent a female disciple to follow Bei Yuyao. Firstly, she wanted to ensure that nothing would happen to her. Secondly, she wanted someone to accompany Beiyuyao. Thirdly, she wanted to train that female disciple of hers. After all, Beiyuyao had just stepped into the early stage of the king stage. Although Long Yu had taken care of her and she had obtained a lot of cultivation resources, her heart was tied to Long Zitian, so she had no way to concentrate on her cultivation. Therefore, she wanted to travel around to relax. As for Dozicheng, who had always been with her, he had now joined the alliance of 5 emperors and had long been separated from Beiyuyao. After all, Beiyuyao was worried about Long Zitian. As a man, he was embarrassed to be with Beiyuyao all the time. Dozicheng came from the 9 Heaven Star Palace on the Heavenly Mandate Island. He stood up for Beiyuyao but was chased by the elders of the 9 Heavens operation. Coincidentally, he was rescued by Long Yu, who had just obtained the Dragon Skeleton Ancient Tower. After that, because he followed Long Yu, he always walked together with Beiyuyao. The two of them could be considered to be very good friends. Dozicheng was originally very good friends with Long Zitian, otherwise he would not have been willing to be chased by the sect elders for Beiyuyao. When Long Yu went to the Beyond Heaven world, Beiyuyao and Yu Hanxin developed a good relationship and settled down in the Northern Snow Empire. As for Dozicheng, he went to the Alliance of 5 Emperors and joined the Alliance of 5 Emperors to continue to pursue martial arts. Long Yu was very grateful to Dozicheng for having been hunted down for the sake of Beiyuyao. However, for such a long time, Long Yu had provided him with a lot of cultivation resources. They did not owe each other anything. If they had the chance to meet, they would still be friends. However, Long Yu would not take the initiative to find him. Beiyuyao was different. After all, she was Long Yu's mother. As she was still traveling around the Northern Snow Empire, it wasn't easy for Long Yu to find her. However, Long Yu was the master of this small world after all. Under the power of the world, everything in this small world had nowhere to hide. Before long, Long Yu found Beiyuyao's location. She was in the northern part of the Northern Snow Empire, enjoying the snowy scenery in a world of ice and snow. As expected, there was a young girl accompanying Beiyuyao. Long Yu remembered that she was Yu Hanxin's disciple. Although Long Yu wasn't present, he was aware of everything that was going on. Beiyuyao was chatting with the girl, calling her Yu. She was now a mid-stage great emperor, enough to keep Beiyuyao safe within the borders of the Northern Snow Empire. Long Yu brought Long Zitian and instantly arrived in the air above the ice field. They were bathed in the falling snow and temporarily did not descend. "That's my mother, Beiyuyao," Long Yu said as he pointed at Beiyuyao, who was still covered in snowflakes. With Long Yu's current abilities, it was impossible for anyone to notice him appearing in the air above Beiyuyao. Even Yu wouldn't be able to detect him. Long Zitian nodded and narrowed his eyes to observe Beiyuyao. Right at this moment, Long Yu suddenly frowned. He noticed that Yu Hanxin's female disciple, Yu seemed to have moved. She raised her head in puzzlement and looked towards the sky. Did she notice something? Long Yu's expression didn't change, but he was starting to get suspicious. He and Long Zitian's aura were concealed by his balanced control. Not to mention a mid-stage great emperor, even a 3rd or 4th stage sovereign wouldn't be able to detect them. But judging from Yu-Er's expression, it was clear that she had discovered something. This made Long Yu click his tongue in wonder. He carefully observed the young girl and saw that she was a delicate and pretty girl. In the Northern Snow Empire, a mid-stage great emperor at this age was definitely a genius amongst geniuses. It was no wonder that Yu Hanxin took a liking to her and took her in as a disciple. Yu-Er's ears were much sharper than the average person's. It was hard to say whether she was relying on perception or her ears to detect that something was amiss. No matter what, Long Yu was certain that Yu had discovered his and Long Zitian's presence. At the very least, she had sensed that something was amiss. This kind of ability was extremely rare, and it piqued Long Yu's interest. If he were to bring Yu along when he was on a mission, many things would become much more convenient. However, she was Yu Hanxin's disciple. Long Yu didn't want to steal her away. He could only wait and get to know her first. Commander, let's go down. They've already discovered us. Long Yu said faintly as he looked down at Bei Yuyao and Yu. They both assumed a vigilant posture. Evidently, because of Yu's vigilance, Bei Yuyao also knew that someone was hiding in the snow above. Since that was the case, there was no need to continue hiding. Admittedly, Long Yu could continue using the Book of Shadows to turn into nothingness, and Long Zai Tian had his own ways to hide even deeper. But there was no need to do so when facing these two women. The two of them revealed themselves and teleported downwards, arriving not far from the two women in the blink of an eye. Amidst the flying snow, Long Zai Tian raised his hand, and all the snowflakes stopped in midair, completely motionless. Just like that, they froze in midair. Long Zaitian and Bei Yuyao saw each other through the falling snow and took in each other's faces. Long Yu could tell that Bei Yuyao had wanted to greet Long Yu when she saw him. After all, she hadn't seen Long Yu for a long time. But very quickly, she saw Long Zaitian's face clearly. She was stunned. Brother Tian? Bei Yuyao was stunned on the spot. She pursed her lips and murmured in disbelief. She hadn't expected that Long Zaitian, who she had been thinking about day and night, would suddenly appear in front of her. She couldn't be mistaken, because Long Zaitian was exactly the same as the Long Zaitian from many years ago. He hadn't changed at all. Long Zaitian could clearly see the deep affection in Bei Yuyao's eyes. However, he seemed to shrink back a little at this moment. That was because he couldn't remember anything about this woman in front of him. Under such circumstances, if he wanted to lie to this woman or tell the truth, it would cause her pain. Long Zaitian couldn't bring himself to do such a thing. Although Long Zaitian was an army commander on the battlefield against the other races, he had come to Long Yu's pocket world to find his lost memories. Now, he was afraid that he couldn't find his memories, but it was really cruel to ask him to hurt a woman's heart. This situation was different from when he had met Bai Yun Zai Tian. Even if he didn't remember Bai Yun Zai Tian, he could still communicate with him as a new friend. However, Long Zai Tian couldn't do this in front of Bei Yuyao. Mother, he lost his memories. Long Yu looked at the complicated expressions on their faces and shook his head. In the end, he still helped to say the truth. Moreover, it seems like there's no way to find his lost memories. If I could remember a beautiful woman like Yuyao, I would definitely remember her at first sight. However, I don't remember anything about you. Long Zai Tian also sighed. Bei Yuyao wasn't disappointed when she heard Long Yu and Long Zai Tian's words. Instead, there was a look of gratification in her eyes. No wonder you didn't come back to look for us all these years. I thought that when you entered the Heaven Prison lightning pool back then. It's good that you're alive, it's good that you're alive. As Bei Yuyao spoke, she smiled as tears rolled down her cheeks. She was really happy because this meant that Long Zai Tian hadn't abandoned her all these years. It was only because he had lost his memories. However, she also felt an indescribable pain in her heart. Long Zai Tian hadn't remembered her after seeing her. Didn't that mean that Long Zai Tian might not be able to find his lost memories? If he couldn't find them, what would she do? Mother, if you have anything to say, just say it to him. Who knows, he might remember something. You and I will leave first. Long Yu thought for a moment before speaking to Bei Yuyao. Then, he gave Yu a look. Yu had been with Bei Yuyao for so long. Of course, she knew who Bei Yuyao had been thinking about all these years. Now that she had suddenly met Long Zai Tian, she could more or less understand Bei Yuyao's feelings. There was no need for outsiders to be present. However, Yu looked at Long Yu with a strange expression on her face. Wasn't this brat the master of the small world she was currently in, Long Yu? Wasn't he Bei Yuyao's son? At this time, shouldn't he stay and comfort Bei Yuyao? Long Yu felt that there was no point in staying. After all, the relationship between Bei Yuyao and Long Zhaitian was between the two of them. There was nothing he could do to help them decide what to do next. After all, when they had separated, Long Yu was just a baby who couldn't speak. There was no need to stand between the two of them. Even though Long Zhaitian had lost his memories, with his emotional intelligence, he knew what to do now. On the contrary, Long Yu was quite interested in Yu. Of course, he wasn't interested in that aspect. He was interested in her almost innate intuition. He wanted to chat with Yu and ask her how she had discovered him. This was something that Long Yu was quite concerned about. In comparison, although he was concerned about Bei Yuyao's matter, he couldn't intervene. It was better to let the adults solve it themselves. Long Yu walked to the side with Yu. While he was curious about Yu was equally curious about him. She had never seen Long Yu before. She had only followed her master, Yu Hanxin, and now Bei Yuyao. She often heard of Long Yu's name. Over time, she had long been very curious about Long Yu. Chapter 1420. Long Zhaitian and Bei Yuyao looked at each other, speechless. No one knew what to say first. Long Yu did not stay in this awkward place. Although he hoped that his parents could reconcile, this kind of thing was not something he could decide as a junior. Long Yu walked to the side with Yu. The snow continued to fall, but only in the area near Long Zhaitian and Bei Yuyao. The snow stopped in the air, as if it would last forever. Long Yu, why don't you go and talk to Sister Yuyao? You should know how important Long Zhaitian is to Sister Yuyao. Even if Long Zhaitian lost his memory, Sister Yuyao can't live without him. Yu whispered to Long Yu. Long Yu shook his head and said, My mother is very strong. She is not as fragile as you think. If Long Zhaitian really does not admit it because he lost his memory, she will not pester him anymore. Trust me. Although Long Yu did not spend much time with Bei Yuyao, he could see some of her character from her daily behavior. Just because of Long Zhaitian, she was imprisoned in the Northern Academy of the Heavenly Mandate Realm for more than 10 years. How could anyone bear this kind of loneliness? But Bei Yuyao completely endured it, which showed that she was strong-willed. Before, she could not forget about Long Zhaitian because she did not know where Long Zhaitian was. This kind of tangled thinking was the source of Bei Yuyao's melancholy. Now, Long Zhaitian finally appeared in front of her. The meeting that she had missed for many years was finally realized. Even if Long Zhaitian had lost his memory, it was enough for Bei Yuyao to let go of the previous obsession. As for what Bei Yuyao would do next, Long Yu did not know. But he was sure that Bei Yuyao would not die because of losing Long Zhaitian at this time. She had never been such a fragile person. But you, how did you find us before Long Zhaitian and I appeared? Long Yu was even more curious about this and directly asked Yu. When Yu heard this, she carefully looked at Long Yu and said, I don't know. I just have a feeling that I was accepted as a direct disciple by Master. It was because I accidentally discovered her hidden whereabouts that she accepted me as a disciple. This innate instinct is pretty good. Long Yu's eyes lit up. I was right. This is just a kind of innate intuition. After all, if it was a martial arts secret technique, it would not have such a heaven-defying effect. Long Yu, could it be that your concealment technique is so powerful that you're so confident that no one will see you? Yu pursed her lips. She was curious about Long Yu, but in the end, Long Yu was Bei Yuyao's son, so she wasn't afraid of Long Yu. She could say whatever she wanted to say. Even though Long Yu was the master of this small world, she wasn't afraid of him. This kind of personality was to Long Yu's liking. Of course, he wasn't trying to flirt with other girls. He just admired this lass's temperament. Of course I have this bit of confidence. In fact, other than you, no one below the ruler's secret realm has been able to discover my hidden track. Long Yu said honestly with a smile. If that's the case, I should be honored. Yu smiled and her eyes were clear. Seeing how calm Long Yu was, she let go of the trace of nervousness in her heart. What does it feel like to have a small world? How many cultivation resources do I need to enter the ruler's secret realm? What's the fastest way to cultivate a martial arts secret technique? After letting go, Yor couldn't keep her mouth shut. She kept asking questions about cultivation to Long Yu. As for the questions that he could answer, Long Yu answered them directly. There were many things that he had experienced, so there was no harm in sharing them with Yor. However, there were some things that could only be comprehended by oneself, and couldn't be taught through word. For example, in order to enter the ruler's secret realm, one had to comprehend the power of creation. However, the power of creation wasn't something that could be comprehended just by listening to others. Long Yu was able to comprehend the power of creation because he controlled 80% of the 9 Nether Dragon Seal and entered the core of the 9 Nether Profound Palace. If it weren't for that, Long Yu didn't know how long he would have been stuck at the threshold of the ruler's secret realm. As the two chatted, time passed quickly. Long Yu also asked a few questions about Yu Hanxin's current situation. As it turned out, Yu Hanxin had already stepped into the 5-star Emperor realm. Although there weren't any items of creation for her to absorb, she relied on her own martial arts talent to forcibly increase her martial arts realm. This kind of talent wasn't something that just anyone had. If Long Yu hadn't left the small world, he wouldn't have been able to obtain so many items of creation. It would have been extremely difficult for him to rely on his talent to increase his strength. As a 5-star emperor, Yu Hanxin still stayed in Long Yu's small world to ensure the smooth development of the Northern Snow Empire. This country was a precious existence that Yu Hanxin's elders had left for her. She couldn't bear to let this country decline just like that. Although the Northern Snow Empire was located in the center of the new martial world, above the holy city of the 5 emperors, and its geographical location was already extremely advantageous, Yu Hanxin still wasn't at ease. When she was in the Northern Snow Empire, Yu Hanxin had vigorously recruited talented personal disciples and cultivated a strong army to ensure that the Northern Snow Empire would have the strongest combat strength after she left. As for Yu Hanxin herself, she had recently prepared to leave the new martial world. It was from Yu Hanxin that Long Yu learned about this situation. Otherwise, he really wanted to run over and ask Yu Hanxin how long she wanted to stay in this small world. If she wanted to stay for a long time, Long Yu didn't mind providing her with some creations first. After all, Yu Hanxin wasn't weak, and she was one of Long Yu's trusted friends. If her martial arts cultivation improved, it would only benefit Long Yu. Previously, Long Yu didn't have enough creations for himself, but now Long Yu didn't have any particular need, especially if he returned to the Void Galaxy. He could get a lot of creations. It was worth mentioning that if Yu Hanxin wanted to leave, she would leave with her 6 personal disciples. They were going to explore the outside world together, including the girl in front of Long Yu, Yu Er. Yu Er was currently in the Middle Emperor realm. In the secret realms of the King's Path, she wasn't very powerful. Therefore, Yu Hanxin wanted to wait until her personal disciples all reached the level of the Emperor before taking them to the outside world. As for how to go to the outside world, they could only go through Long Yu. Long Yu had some ideas about this. His friends were going to the Void Galaxy anyway. Why not take some time to go back to the Void Galaxy and see what was going on? Long Yu hadn't seen Consort Yu for a long time. He wondered if she had made any breakthroughs in martial arts. Calculating the time, if Long Yu went back to the Void Galaxy and came out within 3 days, he could still make it to the shelves of the Demigods' College's biannual new good. He was mainly concerned about the divine wine. He didn't care about anything else. After all, the amount of divine wine represented how long it would take him to fully understand the revelation-level divine characters of Netherworld, the primordial power of water, and the primordial power of metal. It would be a great improvement to his strength. It was a world of ice and snow all around them. Snowflakes continued to fall. Long Yu and Yu Er's bodies were quickly covered in snow. However, the two of them casually used the power within their bodies to evaporate all the snow into water vapor. Not far away, Long Zitian and Bei Yuyao had been chatting since the beginning. Although they didn't know what they were talking about, they seemed to be in a good mood. Finally, after about 4 hours, Bei Yuyao bowed to Long Zitian and turned around to walk to Long Yu and Yu. "Sister Yuyao, how is it?" Seeing this, Yu ran over and asked. "It's nothing. Although we can't be together, I've finally untied a knot in my heart." Bei Yuyao smiled. There wasn't any sadness in the depths of her eyes. It was just as Long Yu had expected. Once the knot in her heart was untied, she wouldn't have any big thoughts anymore. As for the result, Long Yu should know. Anyway, Bei Yuyao probably wouldn't be going with Long Zitian. Did he really lose his memory? Can't he remember anything? Yu asked sadly as she looked at Long Zitian, who was standing not far away. "Well, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm just curious about what he experienced back then." As Bei Yuyao spoke, she turned her head and glanced at Long Yu. She smiled and said, "Little Yu, take me to the beyond heaven world. I've abandoned the path of martial arts for so many years. It's time to pick it up and continue on." Originally, Bei Yuyao had been seriously injured, but Long Yu had completely healed her. After all, he had obtained many immemorial-level healing elixirs. It was easy for him to treat Bei Yuyao's serious injuries. Therefore, Bei Yuyao's martial arts realm had improved recently, but it wasn't fast. After all, she had a knot in her heart and couldn't focus most of her attention on cultivation. But now it was different. Bei Yuyao was the daughter of the North Yard Lord of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, and her martial arts talent was excellent. It could be said that with Bei Yuyao's talent, if she worked hard, she might not be any worse than Man Xian and Chihua, who were by Long Yu's side. To Long Yu, this was naturally good news. To be able to let Bei Yuyao walk out from the knot in her heart was also not bad. Although Long Zitian lost his memories and couldn't remember the past, it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Although Long Yu didn't know what Bei Yuyao and Long Zitian talked about, Bei Yuyao's decision was not bad for Long Yu. At least it was an acceptable decision. Chapter 14:21. Mother, if you want to leave, I will arrange it. But not now. Wait until we reach a safe place in the outside world, then I will let you out. Otherwise, I can't guarantee your safety. Long Yu said solemnly to Bei Yuyao. Well, no problem. Whenever is convenient for you. I also have to make some preparations. I need to say goodbye to some friends. Bei Yuyao nodded with a smile. Well, then I will leave first. The situation outside has not been completely resolved. Long Yu also smiled and said, the outside world was still the battlefield of the foreign races. They could encounter danger at any time or some special situation, just like when the human race's ruler army was suddenly surrounded by the fire god race. As long as they were in the territory of the foreign races, they could face danger at any time. This danger did not only come from the fire god race, but also from other foreign races. No one knew exactly how many foreign races were plotting against the human race in this area at this moment. After leaving Bei Yuyao and Long Yu and Long Zitian left his small world and returned to Long Zitian's room in the steel fortress. What did you talk about? Long Yu was a little curious about this, so he asked casually. I said, although I can't remember my previous memories, I am still very willing to bring her along. Maybe I will remember it someday. Long Zitian spread his hands and said, unfortunately, she is not willing to wait for me to regain my memories. Instead, she said that instead of waiting for my memories to return, it is better to work hard from now on so that I can get to know her again. I quite like this woman, haha. I want to slap you. Although you have lost your memories, what happened between you and her is the truth. You even have a son. Long Yu curled his lips and said, but since you can't remember, there is no other way. This matter can be taken slowly. Since there is nothing here, I have to leave first. Where are you going? Long Zetian asked. There is still a long distance from here to the outer domain galaxy. I am afraid it is not very safe for you to be alone. Why not come with us to the vicinity of the human battlefield? There's no need. Since I can come here alone, of course I can go back alone. Why are you worried about me? Long Yu shook his head, waved his hand at Long Zetian, and walked out of the steel fortress. Long Zetian didn't stop him. He watched as Long Yu left and smiled in relief. Then, he ordered the Heavenly Dragon Army to open the door and let Long Yu leave the fortress. After exiting the steel fortress, Long Yu's vision once again returned to an endless void. He discovered that he could no longer sense the existence of the steel fortress the moment he walked out of it. That invisibility ability had even fooled Long Yu. This was completely normal. After all, Long Yu's current spiritual awareness wasn't particularly strong. Even with the addition of balanced control, his spiritual awareness was only equivalent to that of a 4th or 5th phase ruler. He just didn't know that when Long Yu became a 4th or 5th phase ruler, the strength of his spiritual awareness would definitely surpass that of an ordinary 7th phase ruler. It might even be close to the level of a demigod expert. At that time, would he be able to sense the existence of the steel fortress that was the Heavenly Dragon Army? With this question in mind, Long Yu hid his figure alone, turned into nothingness, and disappeared into the void. The human clan's Dominator Corps that had been rescued by the Heavenly Dragon Legion had already separated from the Heavenly Dragon Legion and left this place. They should have gone ahead and wanted to return to the human clan's battlefield fortress to rest and reorganize as soon as possible. Long Yu, after transforming into nothingness, also rapidly traversed towards the direction of the human clan's outer realm Star River. Relying on the void Nether Dragon Blade's void travel, his speed was much faster than the Heavenly Dragon Army's steel fortress. After turning into nothingness, only demigod existences could discover Long Yu's figure. Therefore, all the members of the Heavenly Dragon Army, including Long Zetian, had completely lost track of Long Yu. This made the members of the Heavenly Dragon Army click their tongues in amazement. As expected of the commander's son. Amazing! This kind of saying spread to every corner of the Heavenly Dragon Army, which made Long Zetian quite puzzled. After all, even as the commander of the Heavenly Dragon Army, he didn't have such a powerful concealment ability. Most importantly, Long Yu was already so powerful when he was only a high-level ruler. When he stepped into the great ruler level, wouldn't he be even more invincible? Of course, Long Yu couldn't be bothered about what the people of the Heavenly Dragon Army thought. He only knew that he needed to meet up with Red Oriole as soon as possible, then finish a few training missions in the Demigod Academy, wait for the new batch of divine wine to be put on the shelves in the Demigod Academy, and then cultivate again to improve his strength. However, halfway through his journey, he encountered another accident. When the Nether Dragon Blade brought him directly to the halfway point, a violent burst of flame divine text power erupted in front of him, and suddenly enveloped Long Yu. The explosion of flame divine text power most likely meant that a tyrannical fire god race had appeared in front of him. Long Yu's heart trembled. He just happened to pass through the void and collided with it. He didn't have a good way to dodge at the moment, and could only activate the Book of Shadows. His entire body turned into the flame divine text power, and completely merged with it. In this way, he was able to come out of this sudden explosion unscathed. When his situation stabilized, he looked around, and finally found the situation in this place somewhat familiar. A large group of fire god race appeared in front of Long Yu. There were about 100 of them, and each of them was at least a 6th phase great ruler existence. Among them, there were 12 7th phase great rulers of the fire god race, and a total of more than 120 fire god race members surrounded the human race ruler army. Seeing this scene, Long Yu's face immediately twitched. Wasn't this human race ruler army the one he had rescued from the encirclement before? And it was also the one that was rescued by the heavenly dragon army not long ago. Now, this human race ruler army was actually surrounded by the fire god race once again. What kind of sin have I committed? Long Yu's face darkened. The situation in front of him really made him complain about his incompetence. However, from this, he deduced that the fire god race must have something special about this human race ruler army for them to pursue and annihilate this human race ruler army so relentlessly. Otherwise, how could they surround and attack him time and time again? Moreover, the fire god race must have a way to grasp the whereabouts of this ruler army. Otherwise, it would be impossible to find them so quickly and even catch up to them and surround them. It was very likely that this human race ruler army had stolen something from the fire god race. Long Yu deduced this point, but it was useless, because in the current situation, there was nothing he could do to help. In his eyes, the total number of people in the human race's ruler's army was less than 4,000. Another 2,000 people had lost their lives and would never be able to return to their homeland. And in the battlefield, there were more than 120 fire god race powerhouses. They could easily crush all the people in this human race ruler army. Although I can't fight against these fire god race powerhouses, it's not good to watch them die. In that case, I will save as many as I can, as Long Yu thought to himself. He continued to transform into nothingness and flew toward the center of the battle. The distance between them wasn't far. Based on this situation, Long Yu would soon be able to fly into the middle of the battle. Then, he would find some time to pull the human race ruler's army into his own small world. That way, he would be able to hide and avoid the fate of being killed by the fire god race. The only problem was how Long Yu could make the people of the human race ruler army voluntarily come to his small world. This was a problem. Generally speaking, every ruler army had a special communication method. If Long Yu told the commander of the ruler army that he wanted to save people, he should be able to convey it to the rest of the army, right? In any case, the ruler army had been besieged by the fire god race 3 times in a row. They were really unlucky. Long Yu couldn't stand it anymore. He would save as many people as he could. First, he saw the commander of the ruler army. He was a 7th stage sovereign realm human powerhouse. At this time, he was surrounded by 5 7th stage sovereign realm experts from the fire god race. 1 against 5, he was forced to retreat again and again. The commander of the human race ruler army gritted his teeth and endured. He could feel the heavy casualties of his brothers around him. His heart was bleeding. These days, the ruler army that he led had suffered a lot. However, the key problem was that even he didn't know why he was so unlucky. Did the fire god race really have their eyes on their army? Even though they had lost more than 10,000 fire god race experts, they still weren't willing to give up so easily? If I knew this would happen, I would have moved with the Sky Dragon army. Unfortunately, I don't know where the Sky Dragon army is now. The commander of the ruler army was very anxious. If they didn't have the help of the other armies, the entire ruler army would definitely be annihilated today. At this time, the burly commander suddenly received a divine sense. This divine sense was slightly familiar, and he quickly remembered. Wasn't this the divine sense aura of Long Yu, the one who came to save them the first time they were besieged? After all, Long Yu had moved with the ruler army for a period of time. The commander immediately recognized Long Yu's divine sense. Long Yu's divine sense said, "Commander, if there is no other way, give the order for your army to not resist. Let them enter my small world. I am confident that I can bring them all back alive." After receiving Long Yu's divine sense, the commander was undoubtedly overjoyed. He immediately used the special communication method of the ruler army to spread the news. Immediately after, Long Yu began to move. Chapter 1422. Long Yu shuttled through the void at high speed. He kept one sovereign mystic realm expert after another into his own small world before turning into nothingness and hiding again. Every time he appeared, it was only for a split second. The experts of the fire god race, who had surrounded the human race's sovereign mystic realm expert, quickly found out about his existence. He was constantly saving the sovereign mystic realm experts, but he was unable to find Long Yu. One had to know that Long Yu could turn into nothingness. Only existences in the demigod realm would be able to find him. Under such circumstances, Long Yu very quickly saved more than 100 people. He was very familiar with the process, and his speed of saving people became even faster. Although he was saving people like this, Long Yu still felt very strange. He didn't know why the fire god race was so obsessed with dealing with the sovereign mystic realm army. Was it really because the sovereign mystic realm army was too unlucky? Or was there some other reason? If Long Yu knew the reason, he might be able to gain something from it. He might be able to let the sovereign mystic realm army understand why they were so unlucky to be targeted. Unfortunately, even the commander of the sovereign mystic realm army didn't know the reason. He was either hiding it or he really didn't know. But I'm about to lose my life. Even if I hide it, there's no point, Long Yu thought to himself. He continued to save people. Regardless of whether he knew the truth or not, the only thing he could do now was save people. He would save as many as he could. Although the sovereign mystic realm army didn't give him this task, he knew that the more people he saved, the more rewards he would get when he went back. Even if there was no reward, Long Yu would do his best to save as many people as he could. In any case, he wouldn't suffer any losses. If he could save so many people's lives, why wouldn't he do it? Logically or emotionally, Long Yu had no reason to back down. Under the constant slaughter of the fire god race, fewer and fewer people were left in the human race's army of rulers. Long Yu was not picky when it came to saving people. As long as he could conveniently save them, he would wrap them up with the power of his world and send them into his small world. It didn't matter if they were lesser hegemons, intermediate hegemons, high hegemons, or great hegemons. Long Yu saved them all. Soon, there were more than 500 human hegemons gathered in the pocket dimension. Meanwhile, in the Great World, the number of people in the Autarch's army kept decreasing. The rate at which they were dying was about the same as the rate at which Long Yu was saving people. In a short period of time, only 3,000 of the original 4,000 remained. Save another 1,000 people and leave quickly. The rest of US will hold them off for you. The commander of the Juggernaut army was almost at his limit, but he still did not let Long Yu save him. From his tone, one could hear a hint of guilt and self-blame. As a commander, he had failed to protect the members of his Juggernaut army. This was undoubtedly a failure. Under such a failure, he could only rely on Long Yu if he wanted as many of his people as possible to survive. He truly didn't expect that a high-level ruler like Long Yu would actually be able to act like a fish in water in this battlefield filled with sovereigns, and even rescue his people. However, no matter what, it was good that he was able to rescue them. If it wasn't for Long Yu's arrival, all of them would most likely have been wiped out. When Long Yu heard the commander's words, he didn't think much of it. He immediately began to save people even faster. In fact, to make it easier to save people, Long Yu discovered that many people in the Juggernaut army were spontaneously moving closer to each other. This way, Long Yu could save more people at once and increase the efficiency of the rescue. Although the speed of rescuing people was faster, because there were fewer and fewer humans on the battlefield, the speed at which the fire god race slaughtered the humans also became faster and faster. The number of people being killed and those being saved still maintained a balance. When Long Yu appeared, he was able to save dozens of people. But at the same time, the Fire God clan also began to send people to stop him. They even guessed where he might appear to save people and set up some simple spell formations to deal with him. Unfortunately, Long Yu's spiritual sense was very strong. These simple arrays seemed to appear directly in front of him. How could he run into them? If he couldn't save people here, he would go to the other side to save people. If he wanted to be saved by Long Yu, then the Juggernaut Army's Juggernaut experts had to stall the fire god race in the surroundings or clean up the traps. Everyone knew the importance of this. It was impossible for Long Yu to sacrifice himself to save them. According to the Legion commander, Long Yu quickly rescued a total of 1,500 people and placed them in his small world. After that, there were only 1,000 people left on the battlefield. The other 1,500 people had died under the slaughter of the fire god race's great sovereign. The remaining 1,000 people began to desperately attack the fire god race's juggernaut experts, dragging every fire god race's juggernaut experts into the battle. Under such circumstances, Long Yu turned into nothingness and flew far away. Since he had concealed himself, no one from the fire god race could discover him. The fire god race was still preventing Long Yu from appearing again to save people. They wanted to capture Long Yu, but they didn't expect that Long Yu had already left quietly. Being able to save 1,500 people was already a very good result. Long Yu's inner strength had already been exhausted several times. If it weren't for someone who happened to know a secret martial arts technique that could transfer power to Long Yu and replenish his energy, Long Yu might not even have enough pills on him. After all, the fire god race's juggernaut army was one of the human race's juggernaut experts. Their warriors knew a lot of secret techniques, such as transferring energy, concealing aura, increasing speed, and so on. Long Yu could be considered to have eaten a wave of benefit. It made it harder to detect him when he hid, and his speed was faster when he flew away. Before long, he brought the 1,500 juggernaut experts to a distance of at least 1,000,000 miles away from that area. Only then did he relax a little. However, what puzzled Long Yu was that he still felt that he was in danger, as if there was something following him. But even with his spiritual sense, he couldn't find out what was chasing him. This feeling made Long Yu not dare to stop for even a second. He controlled the Nether Void Dragon Blade to pierce through the void, trying to run as far as possible. Calculating the distance, if Long Yu wanted to return to the nearest human battlefield fortress, he would need at least a day's time. In this one day's time, any accident could happen, and he absolutely couldn't afford to be careless. Otherwise, it was very likely that tragedy would befall Long Yu. After all, his opponents were a large group of peak Sovereign Realm experts from the Fire God race. Moreover, Long Yu had a strange premonition that he was being followed. It was very likely that the other party could still track him down. Long Yu continued to run. About half a day later, the situation finally changed for the worse. Because Long Yu could feel that the thing following him was still there, and he couldn't shake it off. He had no idea what it was. Then, the more he advanced, the more he could feel the temperature around him gradually rising. Before he could react, he fell into a space barrier. Someone caught him. One by one, the figures of the Fire God race appeared around Long Yu. A total of hundreds of Fire God race sovereigns surrounded him from all directions. When Long Yu was rushing, he didn't turn into nothingness, but now he had no choice but to use his means. He didn't know how the other party caught up with him, nor did he know why the other party had to catch up with him, but now he had to escape from this encirclement. Path of the Nine Underworld. Long Yu directly activated a powerful magical method, the Path of the Nine Underworld. He quickly flew to the front of the space barrier, and then the Path of the Nine Underworld extended a pitch-black path, trying to penetrate and disintegrate the layer of space barrier. But to Long Yu's surprise, the time needed for his Path of the Nine Underworld to disintegrate the layer of space barrier was definitely more than the time it took for the Fire God race to kill him. Without any other choice, Long Yu could only activate the Book of Shadows. His whole body disguised as the power of the space barrier, then he integrated into it and finally escaped from the other side of the space barrier. Finally, he turned into nothingness. Long Yu's figure once again disappeared without a trace. The hundreds of fire god race sovereigns were extremely agitated. They constantly used their magical abilities and fire attacks in the direction where Long Yu disappeared and some areas in front of him. Unfortunately, since Long Yu was hiding, how could he let them hit him? Someone used a secret martial arts technique in Long Yu's small world to transmit power. Long Yu didn't have to worry about his power drying up. Moreover, among the 1,500 human race sovereigns, there was more than one who knew the secret martial arts technique. There was a small logistics team with hundreds of people who actually knew the secret martial arts technique. This secret martial arts technique wasn't rare in the human race and the Fey race. It could even be said to be a cheap secret martial arts technique in the battlefield between the human race and the Fey race. It was easy to learn, but generally it wasn't very useful. It could only occasionally play a supporting role. Therefore, those who didn't have much ability could directly cultivate the power transmission technique. That way they could still be of some use on the battlefield and earn some contributions. Although Long Yu escaped the enemy's encirclement this time, he was still very puzzled. He didn't know why the other party insisted on chasing him. It had to be known that this place wasn't far from the nearest battlefield fortress of the human race. If the Fire God race sovereigns encountered some human race patrol legion, they would definitely be annihilated. They were taking such a huge risk to annihilate the human race's ruler's army. This was clearly strange. Long Yu didn't believe that the Fire God race were stupid. The only explanation was that the human race sovereigns carried something very important to the Fire God race. Chapter 1423. In fact, Long Yu was really wrong. The Fire God race was so unscrupulously and stubbornly chasing after a target. It was very likely that it was not because the target was carrying something, but because they had a grudge against the target. Of course, the human race and the Fire God race had long been on bad terms with each other. However, racial hatred was not enough to make the other party chase after a ruler legion. The real reason was that the human race's ruler legion had killed an important figure of the Fire God race when they were carrying out a mission. Because of this, the backer of that important figure kept sending Fire God race's ruler legion to annihilate the human race's ruler legion and avenge that important figure. Of course, Long Yu did not know these reasons at all for the time being. All he knew was that as he continued to escape from the encirclement, he was getting closer and closer to the human battlefield fortress. Patrolling armies began to appear in the surroundings. Every patrolling army consisted of great sovereigns, and their combat strength was extremely high. They were there to ensure that they would be able to report back to the battlefield fortress the moment they discovered a situation. The first Patrol Legion squad that Long Yu encountered had a total of 18 Great Dominators. The captain was a 6th Phase Great Dominator, and the rest of the members ranged from 3rd Phase Great Dominators to 5th Phase Great Dominators. As soon as he met someone, Long Yu directly went forward, showed his first-class honor badge, and briefly explained the situation he was facing. Those who could join the Patrol Legion in this kind of place were all experts and had rich experience in fighting against foreign races. After hearing Long Yu's words, they immediately came up with a countermeasure. The captain frowned and said, "This kind of situation has happened before. Although it is possible that they are carrying something very important to the Fire God race, it is more likely that the ruler legion killed an important figure of the Fire God race, so they were targeted. After all, there are not many things that can make the Fire God race so crazy, but there are many important figures that the Fire God race desperately wants to take revenge. You two go and report the situation here to the battlefield fortress. The rest of us will escort little brother Long Yu back." It was impossible to help Long Yu defeat the Fire God Clan Legion that came for revenge with just the 18 people of this patrol team, so they had no other way but to escort Long Yu back first. Fortunately, the Fire God race's great sovereign realm experts wouldn't dare to come here. Otherwise, even if they killed the human race's sovereign realm experts, the fire god race's great sovereign realm experts wouldn't be able to escape. Once a battle broke out here, human reinforcements would immediately arrive. If multiple armies of sovereigns attacked together, those fire god race sovereigns wouldn't even be able to stand a chance. Following the patrol team, Long Yu soon saw the silhouette of the battlefield fortress and heaved a sigh of relief. But it was also at this time that Long Yu's heart suddenly became vigilant. An extremely bad premonition appeared in his mind, causing him to become frightened and nervous. Be careful. Long Yu sensed the fire attribute divine text aura around him and immediately knew that the fire god race had launched another attack. Moreover, the other party was not launching an ordinary attack, but a self-detonation attack. The hundreds of fire god race's great sovereign realm experts actually broke into the area close to the human race's battlefield fortress and launched a self-detonation attack. At first, the human race patrol team didn't notice anything, but Long Yu relied on intuition to sense the other party's intention. Then, the members of the patrol team realized that something was wrong. Right at this time, the fire god race's grand sovereigns finally appeared in front of them. They had used a tyrannical void teleportation technique to instantly appear in this area. Then, they gathered all the energy in their bodies and chose to self-detonate. The self-detonation of a great sovereign realm expert was extremely powerful and could produce chaotic spacetime turbulence. This place was not like the spacetime tunnel where Long Yu encountered such a situation before. In the spacetime tunnel, the Origin 5 elements storm on both sides would absorb all power that exceeded a certain level, causing spacetime turbulence to form in the spacetime tunnel. But now they were not in the spacetime tunnel. The power of the self-detonation of hundreds of fire god race experts and the space-time turbulence produced was definitely not something that Long Yu could resist. At this moment, Long Yu immediately reacted. Activating the Nether Void Dragon Blade, he wanted to flee out of this region. However, he discovered that the 16 members of the human race's patrol army were all looking at him with funny expressions. What are they doing here instead of running away at this time? Long Yu's heart skipped a beat, but he soon knew why. As the fire god race experts appeared in this area together and showed the momentum of their self-detonation, another tyrannical aura immediately descended from the sky. Accompanying this tyrannical aura was a torrent of aqua-colored light that filled the sky. Like rain, light blue light descended from the sky and landed in this area. All the fire god race great rulers that were touched by this blue light had successfully self-detonated, but the power of their self-detonation was absorbed by the blue light and did not explode at all. Not to mention using the power of these self-detonations to kill Long Yu and the others. The water-colored streamers that filled the sky fell and absorbed all the power of the self-detonation, eliminating it into nothingness. The self-detonation crisis of the fire god race, which seemed extremely serious in Long Yu's eyes, was actually easily resolved. Is it strange? Our battlefield fortress has Lord White Tiger presiding over it. The 6th Phase Great Ruler Patrol Team Captain smiled at Long Yu and said, "This area has already entered the battlefield fortress's protection range. There is no need for Lord White Tiger to make a move against this level of fire god race self-detonation attack. Lord White Tiger's Aqua Flowing Light Array is enough to resolve it." Aqua Flowing Light Array. Only now did Long Yu realize that this large expanse of water-colored streamers was actually an array. Such a powerful array was actually able to completely suppress and absorb the power of the self-detonation of over 100 great rulers. How terrifying was this! As for the Lord White Tiger that the captain spoke of, Long Yu had heard of him before. He was a demigod expert of the human race that had been guarding the human race's battlefield since the beginning. In terms of fame, Lord White Tiger's reputation was even more resounding than Long Zaition's. It could be said that White Tiger was the guardian god of this direction of the human race's territory. No matter how fierce the attacks of the foreign races were, they would always return in defeat in front of White Tiger. However, Long Yu had never heard of this Lord White Tiger. Whether this Lord White Tiger was a man or a woman, tall or short, fat or thin, in the eyes of ordinary people, demigod experts were very mysterious existences. There were very few cultivators that could see a demigod with their own eyes. White Tiger should be that demigod's title. As for what his real name was, Long Yu had no idea. However, the fact that White Tiger could actually set up such a powerful array like the aqua flowing light array made Long Yu gasp. He couldn't help but ask the Heaven Fire Doyen in his small world, "Senior, can you set up an array similar to this aqua flowing light array?" Of course, the Heaven Fire Doyen also saw the situation outside. He had been following Long Yu on this journey, and there were many times when he could easily help Long Yu resolve his troubles. However, he did not make a move. After all, Long Yu could deal with it himself, and there was no need for him to help. On the other hand, he didn't want to meddle in other people's business and make Long Yu feel that he could rely on him for everything. However, as the situation changed, especially when Long Yu broke into the encirclement of the Fire God race's demigod army to save people, the Heaven Fire Doyen knew that under such circumstances, even he couldn't affect the overall situation. This was because there were too many demigods of the Fire God race. In a head-on confrontation, the Heaven Fire Doyen wouldn't be a match for them at all. Only Long Yu could escape from such a desperate situation. If it were another person, even the Heaven Fire Doyen himself, he wouldn't be able to break into the encirclement and save 1,500 people before escaping safely. What he saw along the way made him understand Long Yu a lot. At the same time, he also developed a lot of admiration for Long Yu. Obviously, this kid was definitely a natural talent. Although his martial arts realm was still relatively low, once he grew up, his potential would even surpass that of many young geniuses who were sought after by countless people. No wonder he could enter the demigod college. This kid was indeed extraordinary. Now that Long Yu saw the aqua flowing light array and asked him this question, the Heaven Fire Doyen was in a difficult position. This was because it was impossible for him to set up such a powerful array. Even if he performed exceedingly well, he wouldn't be able to set up such a powerful array. This is an array constructed by a demigod senior. I can't do anything about it. Moreover, I'm not the best in the field of arrays. The Heaven Fire Doyen answered Long Yu calmly. He didn't feel ashamed about this. After all, he was best at refining weapons. In the field of refining weapons, he was confident that even those demigod experts might not be better at it than him. In terms of refining weapons, the Heaven Fire Doyen was definitely at the peak of the human race and the demon race. There was no doubt about this. Since I want to develop my own force, I must be able to set up a similar array. Otherwise, how can I establish my force in this world? Long Yu squinted his eyes and said, "Since you don't know how, I'll have to find someone else who's proficient in arrays." "That's right. I've said it before. I joined your force only because of my ability in refining weapons. As for arrays, I hope you can find a stronger senior for me to learn from." The Heaven Fire Doyen said calmly. "I'll pay attention. If there's a suitable candidate, I'll definitely invite him to join us at all costs." Long Yu had agreed to the Heaven Fire Doyen. This matter had indeed been put on his agenda, but he didn't have a candidate yet. As for roping in the White Tiger demigod, it was impossible. Don't even think about it. Chapter 1424. When the aqua-flowing light array appeared and dissipated the power of the self-destruction of the Fire God race powerhouses, those Fire God race powerhouses were sacrificed in vain. It did not affect Long Yu and the others at all. Hundreds of Fire God race great sovereign powerhouses self-destructed. The scene was spectacular, but unfortunately, it was just a flash in the pan. Immediately afterward, Long Yu returned to the battlefield fortress under the leadership of the patrol army squad. No one came to greet them, because the entire battlefield fortress was in a very busy state. Everyone had their own things to do. On the battlefield of the alien races, few people would do things that were just for show. Almost everyone was a pragmatist. Just now, hundreds of fire god race great sovereigns self-destructed nearby. Although it attracted the attention of many people, it had nothing to do with them, so they did not pay attention to it. This situation was very different from the situation in the human territory of the monster race. If this happened in the territory of the human race or the monster race, there would definitely be many people coming to watch and point fingers. But on the battlefield of the alien races, such a situation would never happen. The battlefield fortress immediately sent a team of people to pick up the things left behind by the hundreds of fire god race powerhouses. Although they all self-destructed and the small worlds turned into ashes, there might still be some things left behind. The things that could be left behind in this situation were definitely not ordinary things, so it was better to clean up the battlefield. Little brother Long, wait here for a while. Someone will come to deal with your matters soon. The captain of the patrol army squad said to Long Yu, then left Long Yu with his team members, leaving Long Yu to wait alone in a corner of a hall. This hall was the mission hall of this battlefield fortress. The entire battlefield fortress presented a silver-white streamlined style. Compared with the steel fortress of the Sky Dragon Legion, it was more imposing. People came and went in the mission hall, and few people would pay attention to others. Perhaps because the battle here was more intense, the atmosphere in the battlefield fortress was more tense and somber than on the monster race's side. On the monster race's side, some things could attract a lot of people's attention, but here, not many people would pay attention to other people's affairs. Everyone was in a hurry to complete their own experience or strategic task. Long Yu's strategic mission had been completed, and he had also saved 1,500 people from the sovereign army. What kind of rewards would he receive? Of course, the army on the battlefield would take care of all these things. Soon, a middle-aged man in leather armor, who looked like the person in charge, walked towards Long Yu with 2 storage rings in his hand. The man had a serious expression on his face. When he saw Long Yu, he immediately saluted and said, "You are Long Yu, right? Come with me first, you have a lot of things to do here. Of course, this is your reward for completing the strategic mission, I'll give it to you first." After saying that, he tossed one of the storage rings to Long Yu. Long Yu caught the storage ring and sank his consciousness into it to take a look. He discovered that there were 2 cards inside, and each card could be exchanged for 1 million army contribution points. This was his reward for completing the strategic mission, which was to construct the transmission array and rescue the surrounded sovereign army. He didn't expect it to be worth 2 million army contribution points. However, thinking about it, this was normal. This strategic mission was extremely difficult, and it was no less difficult than the fierce fire talisman in the monster race's territory. Moreover, Long Yu had to complete it alone. If someone shared the rewards with him, there wouldn't be much of a reward. Of course, these rewards weren't much to Long Yu. However, to other ordinary cultivators, 2 million battle merit points could provide them with a year's worth of cultivation and survival. Even some 5th or 6th stage sovereigns would receive the same amount of merit points. Long Yu put away the jade slip and followed the middle-aged man into the depths of the fortress. He knew that he had to deal with the 1,500 sovereign realm experts in his small world. Right now, the human race's sovereign army only had 1,500 sovereign realm experts left. The rest, including their commander, had all died at the hands of the fire god race's sovereign realm experts. Therefore, how to settle these people down was a big problem. These people had died on the battlefield, and they had lost their entire army. Naturally, the battlefield army had to take responsibility for their death. Otherwise, who would be willing to risk their lives on the battlefield? Responsibility was one aspect, and power and protection were 2 other aspects. Both were indispensable. The mission of protecting the human race couldn't be handed over to those with a strong sense of duty. That wasn't enough. There had to be enough benefits to attract more people to join the battlefield army. Long Yu followed the leather-armored middle-aged man to a room inside the fortress. This room was very big. It was like a martial arts practice field. There was a very large space inside. At the entrance of the room, there were several sovereign realm experts in charge of the human race. When they saw that Long Yu was brought in, they nodded at the middle-aged man in leather armor. The person in charge smiled and walked towards Long Yu. "Little brother Long, I already know what happened to you. There should be quite a few sovereign realm experts in your small world, right? Since you saved them, the battlefield army will reward you. For every person you save, you will receive 10,000 battlefield army merit points. How about it?" This person spoke to Long Yu in a negotiating tone. "Actually, we also know that it's not appropriate to use the contribution points of the Legion on the battlefield to calculate human lives. But right now, the Legion of Rulers has suffered heavy casualties. Our Legion on the battlefield has to pay a lot of compensation for those who died." "I understand what you're saying." Long Yu waved his hand, indicating that the other party didn't need to say anything more. Long Yu didn't save people for money. Now that the other party was willing to pay 10,000 battlefield army merit points per person, it was already very good for him. After all, he had saved 1,500 people. That added up to 15 million battlefield army merit points. This amount of battlefield army merit points was enough for him to use for a short period of time. At the very least, it was enough to buy Divine Ascension wine in 2 months. One had to know that Red Oriole had been completing missions at the Demigod Institute. The number of battlefield army merit points she had earned was probably even more than Long Yu. As for the Divine Ascension wine, even in the Demigod Institute, they could only brew a dozen bottles every 6 months. 4 million per bottle was more than enough for him and Red Oriole to buy it all. 10,000 is enough. Should I let them come out to this hall now? Long Yu looked around and asked. That's right. Many thanks for little brother Long's understanding. The person in charge nodded his head happily and pointed to the center of the hall. You can let them gather in the center. We need to count the number of people and other information. After that, we'll give you the battlefield army merit point. Long Yu nodded his head in response. He circulated his world energy and released the 1,500 sovereign secret realm experts he had saved from his small world. Those sovereign secret realm experts also knew what kind of situation they were facing. When they came out of Long Yu's small world, they couldn't help but thank Long Yu. After all, it was Long Yu who had saved their lives. Long Yu responded to them one by one. Very soon, the 1,500 people were released and gathered in the center. According to what had been said before, the battlefield army gave Long Yu 15 million battlefield army merit points. Then, they began to arrange the remaining 1,500 people. As for what their fate would be, Long Yu could guess. They would either continue to serve in the battlefield army and join another sovereign secret realm army, or they would retire and receive a sum of battlefield army merit points. The choice was entirely up to them. The battlefield army would never force others. Hence, there was no need for Long Yu to participate in the following matters. After all, he had saved them. From now on, this matter had nothing to do with him anymore. However, just as he was about to turn around and leave, among the 1,500 sovereign secret realm experts, there was a 5th-stage sovereign realm senior captain. He quickly ran towards Long Yu and handed a jade slip to Long Yu. Hero, this is a gift of gratitude from all 1,500 of us. If it weren't for you, all 1,500 of us would have died in that star field. So, please accept it. Gift of gratitude? Long Yu felt a little strange, but since something was delivered to his doorstep, he naturally wouldn't reject it. Many thanks, everyone. I'll take my leave first, I'm in a bit of a rush. Long Yu nodded his head, and his eyes narrowed as he said to the senior captain. Actually, there's one more thing. The senior captain whispered to Long Yu, many of us would like to follow you in the future. What do you think? Hearing this, Long Yu was a little surprised. He had never thought of bringing these people along. I'm just passing by the battlefield army. I'll be back at the Demigod Academy soon. Long Yu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He could only shake his head and refuse. Even though they were experts from the sovereign's secret realm, Huang Xiaolong didn't need them to follow him. There weren't many experts from the sovereign's secret realm in the Void Galaxy, but he could easily gather them with cultivation resources. Moreover, since these people were from the battlefield army, Long Yu wouldn't be able to poach them. Demigod Academy, Demigod Academy. I knew that a sharp young man like you would definitely be someone with great achievements. Alright, since you don't want us, we'll continue to fight in the battlefield army. I hope that one day, we can fight side by side with you again. The senior captain said with a little pity. Long Yu nodded, then turned around and left. He casually flipped through the jade slip in his hand, and what he found shocked him. This jade slip actually contained an extremely high amount of battlefield army merit. 30 million. These 1,500 people basically contributed 20,000 of their own, adding up to 30 million battlefield army merit. They gave it to Long Yu as a thank you gift for Long Yu saving them. Chapter 1425. Kid, you've made a fortune. Heaven Fire Doyen, who was staying in his small world, immediately knew that Long Yu had received the 30 million battlefield military merit points. He clicked his tongue and said, 30 million. You can buy dozens of infinity-level soldiers with it. You're making money faster than me. But, TSK, kid, you're pretty good. It's hard to come across such an opportunity to save people. Even if it were someone else, they wouldn't be able to save these people alive like you did. Thinking about it this way, it's hard to earn 30 million. It's just that in your hands, kid, it's inexplicably easy. Long Yu dismissed Heaven Fire Doyen's words with a smile. Instead, he asked Heaven Fire Doyen, Senior, is there anything you need to buy? Since it's convenient now, you might as well buy them all now. It'll save you the trouble of going to the market later. Well, then listen carefully. These things will be useful in the future, and they're very expensive. Heaven Fire Doyen didn't stand on ceremony. He told Long Yu the names of several materials, but when Long Yu heard that, he smiled. I already have these materials in my organization. There's no need to buy them. You'll be able to use them immediately when you get there. That's right. Long Yu and Little White had already bought all the materials that Heaven Fire Doyen had mentioned in one go when they exchanged the alien demigod corpses. Heaven Fire Doyen was dumbfounded when he heard Long Yu's words. Every one of the materials he mentioned was very expensive. Even if Long Yu spent all the 30 million on them, he might not be able to buy them all. But now, Long Yu was telling him that he had already prepared the materials? Without a doubt, Long Yu had shocked Heaven Fire Doyen once again. And he believed that Long Yu wouldn't lie to him. What good would it do him to lie to him about something like this? If Long Yu couldn't take them out by then, he would only be hurting himself. Long Yu's abilities seemed to have far exceeded the Heaven Fire Doyen's initial expectations. In fact, it even refreshed his understanding of Long Yu time and time again. Every time, Heaven Fire Doyen thought that he had overestimated Long Yu. However, he soon realized that not only did he not overestimate Long Yu, but he had also underestimated him. This made Heaven Fire Doyen somewhat melancholic. Was he really getting old? These youngsters were actually so crazy now. Right now, Long Yu only had the cultivation of a superior ruler. If he stepped into the Grand Ruler realm, or even rose all the way to the 7th stage Grand Ruler realm, wouldn't his ability be even more terrifying? It could even affect the overall situation of the human race and the demon race. Needless to say, Heaven Fire Doyen had a hunch that Long Yu was very likely to step into the demigod level. If that was really the case, then Long Yu could definitely be said to be one of the pillars of the human race. The overall strength of the human race would increase by a huge margin. Of course, all of this seemed to be a little far away. Heaven Fire Doyen didn't think too much about it. He only hoped that he could reach a higher level on the path of refining weapons and study spirit designs more deeply. If it was possible, he hoped that he could also obtain the opportunity to step into the demigod level. Long Yu didn't leave the battlefield fortress immediately. Instead, he chose some cultivation resources in the battlefield fortress's trading hall. He paid 15 million battlefield merit points to purchase 3 third-grade Heaven Crystal creation items. This was something he could use to break through to the Great Ruler realm. After spending the 15 million, he still had 30 million battlefield merit points, which was completely enough to purchase the Divine Connecting Wine, so he didn't worry about not having enough. He also wanted to buy a shadow essence to strengthen his other innate technique. Unfortunately, this kind of thing could only be found by chance. Even though he had enough battlefield merit points, there was no shadow essence for sale in this battlefield fortress. He couldn't buy it even if he wanted to. Shadow essence, space essence, ice essence. These were all treasures that could strengthen innate technique. As for how they were produced, Long Yu didn't know. He only obtained a space essence and an ice essence from the remains of the demigod of the Ice God clan. The space essence was integrated into the Path of the Nine Nether, which gave the Path of the Nine Nether the ability to disintegrate all spatial power. As for the ice essence, it was auctioned off in the Demigod Academy to Tian Qingxue, a new student of the Twin Demon clan. It was a great harvest. Unfortunately, it wasn't so easy for him to get more essence. This kind of thing was extremely rare in the first place, not to mention that what Long Yu needed was the shadow essence. He didn't know if the shadow essence was produced in the territories of the human race and the demon race. Long Yu knew that the ice essence was produced in the Ice God clan's territory. Frost, the leader of one of the factions in the Demigod Academy, had been in the Ice God clan's territory for a long time. She had almost gathered all the ice essence. If there was a chance, Long Yu wanted to ask around and find out where he could get shadow essence. As long as it was possible, he would work hard. After buying the 3 creation items, Long Yu left the battlefield fortress. He headed in the direction of the human territory. In about 2 days, he would reach the edge of the galaxy. However, at this time, he received news from Red Oriole. Red Oriole and Moon Song had just accepted a new academy mission. They were directly teleported to the Outsiders' battlefield. They were actually not far from Long Yu. This surprised Long Yu. He had originally wanted to return to the Outer Realms or even the human territory to meet up with Red Oriole. He didn't expect her to coincidentally come to the Outsiders' battlefield. Since that was the case, there was no need for Long Yu to return. Instead, he chose to meet up with Red Oriole. In the silent void, Long Yu saw Red Oriole and Moon Song. The 2 women were waiting for Long Yu to arrive. They were also discussing the academy mission. "You're here." When they saw Long Yu, Red Oriole and Moon Song's eyes lit up. In the time that they hadn't seen each other, Long Yu had risen from a lower ruler to a higher ruler. This was a huge change. Although they were already mentally prepared, the 2 women were still shocked when they saw him in person. Among the 2 women, Red Oriole was the only one who had advanced a rank in the martial Dao during this period of time. Like Moon Song, she had become a 3rd-stage sovereign. Moon Song hadn't changed much. She was still a 3rd-stage ruler. However, she wasn't far from becoming a 4th-stage ruler. She would most likely be able to break through in a short period of time. Compared to the time when they carried out the first academy's training together, the current team of 3 was clearly much stronger. Just Long Yu alone was already at least 10 times stronger than before. If Long Yu were to encounter another alien like the one from before, he could easily subdue it and have Red Oriole and Moon Song kill it with everything they had. Moreover, there were still many corpses of fire god race experts sealed in Long Yu's ancient dragon bone tower. In another 5 days, he would be able to turn a 5th-stage ruler fire god race expert into a darkness creature. When that time came, the combat strength of the trio would at least double. Is this mission difficult? Long Yu first asked the other party. It's hard to say. The situation isn't very clear yet. The first step of this mission is to investigate. In other words, the mission issuer hasn't even investigated the situation here. Red Oriole shook her head, then said to Long Yu, the mission objective is to intercept an Abyss Race assassin. Apparently, there's news that an Abyss Race assassin has come to human territory to spy. They want us to intercept and kill him. However, we have no idea where this Abyss Race assassin will appear. Moreover, the Abyss Race's physical bodies are too strong. If it's an Abyss Race assassin above the 5th-stage ruler level, I'm afraid we won't be able to break through his defenses even if we work together. Moon Song was a little worried. Don't worry about that. As long as we can find the target, defeating him shouldn't be a problem. Long Yu shook his head and chuckled. Right now, he was mainly relying on the unbounded grasp and warring celestial body, as well as the ancient Dragonbone Pagoda and the 9 Serenities military order to unleash a horde of creatures of darkness. With that said, Long Yu took out the unbounded martial skill Jade Slips he had obtained earlier. It was a high-grade unbounded martial skill that could only be cultivated by the Yao race. It was a control-type move called Binding Demon Shadow, which was perfect for Red Oriole to cultivate. It was a control-type martial skill similar to the Unbounded Grasp. Since Red Oriole's cultivation base was higher than Long Yu's, the power of the Binding Demon Shadow would definitely surpass Long Yu's Unbounded Grasp. As for Moon Song, Long Yu originally didn't plan on giving her anything. But after thinking about it, Moon Song and Red Oriole's relationship was already very good, and the 3 of them would be working together for a long time. So, Long Yu took out the high-grade unbounded martial skill and gave it to Moon Song. Long Yu had obtained 3 high-grade unbounded martial skills from the remnants of the Bone Race. One of them was the Binding Demon Shadow, and the other was an Ice-type Yao race cultivation method. He had no use for them at the moment. The last one was a high-grade unbounded martial skill that both humans and Yao race could use. It was a movement skill called 9 Firmaments Star Flash. Long Yu wasn't sure how effective it was, but he didn't have the time to cultivate it at the moment. If he wanted to unleash the full power of 9 Firmaments Star Flash, he would have to cultivate it to the transcendent realm at the very least. But right now, Long Yu didn't have the time. Not to mention, 9 Firmaments Star Flash was best suited for light-type divine characters. In this regard, Long Yu was clearly at a disadvantage. He didn't have any accomplishments in light-type divine characters. But Moon Song was different. The divine runes that this girl comprehended were originally the power of star divine runes, one of the light attribute divine runes. Moreover, her compatibility with light attribute divine runes had already reached the 10th level. It could be said that her compatibility with light attribute divine runes far surpassed Long Yu's by dozens of galaxies. It could be said that 9 Firmaments Star Flash was very suitable for Moon Song. After receiving the martial skill Jade Slip, Moon Song looked a little embarrassed. Her face immediately turned red. Chapter 1426. High-grade, unending level techniques were extremely precious, even in the demigod colleges. When Long Yu had participated in the auction of the demigod colleges, someone had put up a low-grade unending level technique for sale, which had been sold for 12 million battlefield merit points. Now, Long Yu's Starlight of the 9 Heavens was a high-grade unending level technique, which was worth more than 10 times that of a low-grade unending level technique. It was no wonder why Moon Song felt a little embarrassed. She didn't know Long Yu very well, yet Long Yu had actually given this martial skill to her to practice. Clearly, it was because they were going to be fighting together in the upcoming battle. Moonsong's eyes lit up. The stronger she was, the more help she could provide to the team. That way, the team would be able to overcome difficulties and complete one trial after another in the colleges. This jade chip is not a gift. It's only for your temporary training. You'll have to return it to me when the academic year of the demigods is over. By then, it will be up to you to see how far you can go. Long Yu smiled at Moonsong. Moonsong nodded and smiled. Yes, I understand. Even if I'm just borrowing it, it's still very precious to me. High-grade, unending level techniques are something that few people in the entire demigod colleges can repair. Long Yu knew a little about this. Even demigod experts might not be able to cultivate high-grade, unending level technique. For example, Jiuyo Dragon Emperor hadn't been able to cultivate more than 2 unending level technique. Of course, that was partly because Jiuyo Dragon Emperor was picky, but it also showed how precious unending level techniques were. Long Yu had given Moonsong 2 high-grade, unending level techniques, Demon Shadow Restraint and Starlight of the 9 Heavens. However, they probably wouldn't be effective in the short term. After all, cultivating high-grade, unending level techniques required a lot of time. Even with Long Yu's special training, it had taken him several months to bring the unbounded grasp and the warring heavenly body frenzy to the transcendent level. That was especially true for Moonsong, who would definitely put all her effort into cultivating the technique. After all, she wouldn't be able to keep the jade slip forever. She would have to return it to Long Yu in about 8 months. She would definitely work hard to cultivate the 9 firmaments star flash to the transcendent state in this period of time. Let's go. Red Oriole, I'll leave it to you to find traces of that abyss race creature. Long Yu said to Red Oriole. He then glanced at his surroundings. In the endless void, starlight flickered. In the battlefield of the outsiders, endless dangers lurked. Red Oriole nodded and began to gather the power of divination in her hand. Just like in the previous training mission, they had obtained an item that contained the aura of the abyss race creature. Using this item, they could perform divination on the abyss race creature. Whether it was its condition or its location, as long as they had enough power of divination, they would be able to find it. Because Red Oriole had practiced the secret martial arts of the Blood Demon clan, her deduction ability was much stronger than that of ordinary martial cultivators of the same level. However, at this moment, her deduction was like a stone sinking into the ocean. She received no effect at all. Obviously, either the Abyss Race Assassin was very far away, or the Abyss Race Assassin had a very strong ability to block deductions. Either way, it wasn't a good sign for the 3 of them. But in terms of divination, Long Yu and Moonsong couldn't help much. When Red Oriole performed her divination, Long Yu and Moonsong could only protect her from the side. They couldn't do anything else. Red Oriole frowned. It seemed that there was no news. But very soon, a hint of joy appeared on her face. There's some movement. Although we can't find the enemy's location or any other information, we can follow the clues and find out which area the enemy is in. As Red Oriole spoke, she used a special technique. This special technique was derived from the Blood Demon race's secret martial arts technique after she had cultivated it to the peak of the 9th level. For example, the Balanced Light strengthened the secret martial arts technique, Balanced Control. After Red Oriole performed this special technique, her divination ability was immediately increased by 10 times. The 10 times stronger divination ability made Red Oriole, who was already very good at divination, even more shrewd. Her power of divination was like an ancient torrent, pouring into the abyss race creature she was deducing. Originally, Red Oriole had already found some information about the creature. Now that her divination ability was increased by 10 times, although it consumed all of Red Oriole's power of divination, it allowed her to clearly capture the location of the abyss race creature. It's more than 10 million kilometers away. It's flying toward human territory. This abyss race creature is a 5th phase sovereign. Its combat ability must be very strong. Be careful. Red Oriole immediately said to Long Yu and Moon Song when she received this information. The two nodded. Moon Song was quite experienced. After receiving this information, she said, the physical body of the Abyss race is made of metal and is extremely strong. The assassins of the Abyss race completely rely on their physical strength, so don't fight them head-on. Forget about the physical bodies of fifth-phase sovereigns. Even a third-phase sovereigns of the Abyss race has a much stronger physical body than us. Moon Song had fought against the Abyss race before, so she was very cautious about this. Similarly, Long Yu, who had fought against the Abyss race before, knew that the Abyss race was a foreign race that came from the Abyss. They didn't have a territory in the Great World, so they always wanted to invade the territories of other races. Although he didn't know what kind of assassination mission this Abyss race assassin had, Long Yu definitely couldn't let the other party take one step closer to human territory. Be careful, Red Oriole said gravely. Red Oriole said gravely, my deduction abilities have been exhausted, so the Abyss race will most likely change locations during this period of time. As for which direction, we have no idea. Since we can't always keep track of its movements, we must act quickly. At the very least, let's go take a look nearby. My martial realm is the lowest, so I can go there and try to lure it out. Long Yu said. Then we will enter the inner space of Little Void. If you encounter any danger, we will immediately appear. Red Oriole nodded. She already understood what Long Yu was thinking. After all, the two of them had fought together many times, so they had some understanding of each other's thinking. Now that Long Yu had the Void Dark Dragon Blade, his speed was obviously the fastest. Moreover, Long Yu's life-saving abilities were also very strong, so there wouldn't be any problems for him to act as bait. Most importantly, the opponent was an Abyss race assassin with an extremely strong physical body. Therefore, there was no way the assassin would have any other ability that could kill Long Yu. After all, Long Yu had the Book of Shadows' divine ability, as well as all sorts of other methods to break free from physical attack. Moon Song didn't know Long Yu that well. She was a little surprised by Long Yu and Red Oriole's battle plan. So Long Yu was going to be bait to lure the Abyss race assassin? But no matter what, Moon Song trusted Long Yu and Red Oriole very much. She had worked together with Red Oriole for more than 3 months, so she was very clear about Red Oriole's strength. This was especially true after Red Oriole became a third-phase great ruler. Her strength was almost on par with Moon Song's. When dealing with foreign races, Red Oriole was just as useful as Moon Song. After working together in many battles, Moon Song didn't doubt the two's battle plan. She followed Red Oriole and entered the inner space of the Void Dark Dragon Blade. Then, they passed through the void. Water-type absolute beginning power enveloped the entire Void Dark Dragon Blade. Then, it carried Long Yu and the other 2 tens of thousands of kilometers away. Long Yu's strength had increased, and his compatibility with the Void Dark Dragon Blade had reached a higher level. The distance the Void Dark Dragon Blade could travel through the void had reached a new limit. A single jump covered 3 million kilometers. The distance between them and the Abyss race assassin was only 10 million kilometers. Long Yu only needed to jump 3 or 4 times to reach that place. No matter how fast the other party was, it couldn't have gotten very far in such a short amount of time. As long as Long Yu appeared in the other party's perception range, would the Abyss race assassin take the initiative to attack and kill Long Yu? Long Yu didn't know what the other party's objective was, nor did he know what the other party's personality was like. In any case, he had to get to that place first. Even if the other party wasn't willing to show up, Red Oriole could use this time to quickly replenish the deduction power she had expended. Once they got there would definitely be more of the Abyss race assassin's aura. She would be able to more easily deduce the other party's current location. With 4 leaps, Long Yu traversed a distance of 3 million miles each time. After 4 leaps, Long Yu appeared in another part of the void with the nether void dragon blade. As soon as he arrived, he felt a somewhat familiar aura. This was the aura of the Abyss Race's metal body. Clearly, the Abyss Race assassin had stayed here for a while. Perhaps Red Oriole's powerful deduction power had made it stay here for a while. But now, when Long Yu arrived, he didn't see any traces of the Abyss Race assassin. Long Yu waited for a while, but nothing else happened. The Abyss Race assassin seemed to have completely left this place. Red Oriole and Moon Song were slightly disappointed when they saw this. They wanted to come out of the void dark dragon blade, but Long Yu stopped them. Wait a little longer. Maybe it's still confirming the situation. Long Yu said to the two girls, and then he pretended to search alone in the same place. If there were more people, the Abyss Race assassin might not appear. But now, Long Yu pretended to be alone. The Abyss Race assassin might not be able to control himself and attack Long Yu. Chapter 1427. Long Yu continued to wait in the void. Red Oriole and Moon Song didn't come out of the void nether dragon blade for now. They wanted to wait for a while. In any case, Red Oriole's power hadn't completely recovered yet. Once she recovered enough to perform another divination, she should be able to come out and continue divining the Abyss Race assassin's whereabouts. Long Yu waited for a while. When he discovered that there was no movement around him, he wasn't in a hurry. In any case, he was certain that the Abyss Race assassin's speed wasn't as fast as his void nether dragon blade. Since that was the case, even if the Abyss Race assassin didn't take the bait and attack him, he could wait for Red Oriole to recover and continue divining the Abyss Race assassin's whereabouts. In any case, he was faster than the Abyss Race assassin. This way, he would catch up to the Abyss Race assassin sooner or later. After about an incense stick's worth of time, there was still no movement around him. Red Oriole's power had more or less recovered. At this time, Long Yu could only disappointedly give up on the idea of luring the Abyss Race assassin out. It seems that this Abyss Race assassin is very stubborn about his mission. Even after seeing a human minion like me, he didn't kill me. He's too cautious. Long Yu sighed and shook his head. Red Oriole, however, laughed. Don't feel too bad. Think about it. If you were to carry out a mission in foreign races' territory, apart from completing the mission, what else would you do? Even if he killed an insignificant minion, it was very likely that he would expose himself because of it. That's not worth it. You're right. I was thinking too much. Since that's the case, I can only rely on you to divine the Abyss Race assassin's location. Long Yu scratched his head. Then, Red Oriole flew out of the void nether dragon blade's space. As for Moon Song, she didn't appear for now. Right now, she could act as a trump card and hide. During the pursuit, only Long Yu and Red Oriole could appear. After catching up, there would inevitably be a battle. At that time, Moon Song's sudden appearance would definitely catch the Abyss Tribe assassin off guard. Even if she couldn't kill him directly, she could at least disrupt his formation and put him at a disadvantage in the following battle. Red Oriole's deduction power surged again and fell on the Abyss Race assassin's body across the endless void. This time, the result was even faster. Red Oriole hadn't used all of her deduction power yet. Because the nether void dragon blade was very fast, it didn't take long for it to arrive. Even though the Abyss Race kept teleporting, it was only 4 million miles away. From this point of view, the speed of the netherworld dragon blade was 3 times that of the opponent. Since that was the case, Long Yu was relieved. The closer the distance, the easier it would be for Red Oriole to deduce her opponent's position, and the less time she would have to escape. Chase. Long Yu laughed and entered the nether void dragon blade's inner space again. He told Little Void to use Void Traverse and traverse 3 million miles in one go. After another traverse, they traversed 1 million miles in the void and arrived at the location that Red Oriole had deduced. It was obvious that the opponent was approaching the human race's territory. However, this place was quite far away from the outer galaxies, so he didn't know who the Abyss Race Assassin's target was. But thinking about it, a fifth-phase ruler Abyss Race Assassin shouldn't be able to kill an important person of the human race. No matter what, Long Yu's goal was to kill him. After catching up to the opponent's position again, Long Yu discovered that the void was still quiet. Nothing appeared in his field of vision. Red Oriole, continue the deduction. Since he didn't see anyone, he continued the deduction. At the same time, Long Yu made 100% preparations. If the Abyss Race Assassin appeared nearby, he would be able to react immediately. The Balanced Control secret art was also fully activated. The Balanced Light buffed himself and Red Oriole, increasing their spiritual sense perception by 10 times. Red Oriole came out of the Nether Void Dragonblade's inner space and began to deduce the Abyss Race Assassin's whereabouts. Her deduction power gathered. If the situation was normal, she should be able to deduce the opponent's whereabouts in a few breaths. After all, the opponent had only teleported 1,000,000 miles away in a short time. Deducing his whereabouts was even easier. Long Yu was on high alert while Red Oriole continued to deduce. Found him, careful! Red Oriole suddenly screamed. She had deduced the Abyss Race Assassin's whereabouts, but the position he was in gave her a fright. The position she had deduced was behind her, in other words, in front of Long Yu. The Abyss Race Assassin was hiding next to Long Yu and Red Oriole. This situation gave Red Oriole a fright. Just as she screamed, a low grunt came from behind her. That grunt came from Long Yu. At the same time that Red Oriole screamed, a black shadow suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Without giving Long Yu any time to react, Long Yu's entire body was sent flying. His physical body was completely smashed to pieces. The reason Long Yu was able to groan was because his physical body was relatively strong. The Abyss Tribe Assassin had appeared too close. Even Long Yu, who had been on guard all this time, hadn't expected the other party to appear right next to him. As if discovering that Long Yu was the fastest to catch up to him, the Abyss Race Assassin attacked first, choosing to deal with Long Yu. It could be said that he was going to kill him in one hit. The fleshly body of the Abyss Race was too strong. In a head-on collision, Long Yu had no chance of winning. It wasn't strange for an Abyss Race Assassin to be killed in a single strike. That pile of flesh floated in the air just like that. The Abyss Race Assassin did not immediately run after his first hit. Instead, he turned and leapt at Red Oriole. Fortunately, the moment that Long Yu was hit, Red Oriole reacted. Facing the Abyss Race Assassin's attack, Red Oriole's demon blood 6 wings opened. Blood-red light covered her body, and the power of blood-red divine characters gathered to form a blood-red shield. This blood-red shield blocked the Abyss Race Assassin's physical attack. Although the blood-red shield shattered, the Abyss Race Assassin's attack was stopped. This Abyss Race Assassin was similar to the one that Long Yu had seen before. Its entire body glowed with a metallic luster. Sometimes it was black iron, and sometimes it was silver. The steel-like body represented a very strong life force. It would not be easy to kill this Abyss Race Assassin. However, this Abyss Race Assassin revealed one thing. Although Long Yu's physical body had exploded, he was not dead yet. In that pile of flesh, the demon dust heart was still beating, absorbing all kinds of energy around it. It was reconstructing Long Yu's physical body. Moreover, Long Yu used a martial arts secret technique of balanced control to hide the energy fluctuations in this pile of flesh. This made it so that the Abyss Race Assassin could not detect that he was regenerating. Fortunately, this opponent was from the Abyss Race. The Abyss Race's physical body was very strong, but whether it was spiritual sense or deduction ability, there was a big gap between them and humans and Yao. Therefore, the Abyss Race Assassin did not detect that Long Yu was reconstructing his physical body. And this also sowed the seeds of its failure. Red Oriole was a 3rd-rank ruler Yao cultivator. If she was dealing with a normal 5th-rank ruler, she would definitely be able to deal with him easily. It was just like how Long Yu was dealing with a second-rank ruler. However, this Abyss Race assassin was clearly not a normal fifth-rank ruler. To be sent to a foreign race's territory to carry out an assassination mission, this Abyss Race assassin's strength was probably equivalent to a normal seventh-rank ruler. Therefore, when Red Oriole faced the Abyss Race assassin, she immediately fell into a disadvantage. However, even in this situation, Moon Song did not appear. She knew that even if she appeared now, she would not be able to alleviate Red Oriole's situation. At most, she would be able to delay the Abyss Race assassin. She believed that Red Oriole and Long Yu would be able to delay the Abyss Race assassin until all of its attention was drawn. When that time came, Moon Song would appear and kill the assassin in one blow. Red Oriole resisted the Abyss Race assassin's attacks with difficulty. Blood-colored divine runes continuously danced around her body. Blood-colored whips danced chaotically in the air, continuously lashing at the Abyss Race assassin's body. However, the Abyss Race assassin's physical body was simply too strong. It did not move an inch even after enduring a few of Red Oriole's attacks. Moreover, it faced the attacks head-on. It did not even use any defensive moves or technique. This kind of physical strength was far beyond Red Oriole's expectations. Red Oriole and her younger brother, Red Monarch, had trained in a foreign race's battlefield before, but when had they ever encountered such a powerful Abyss Race assassin? For a moment, Red Oriole was stunned. This Abyss Race assassin had such a strong physical body. Even if he just stood there and let her kill him, it would take her a long time to kill him. Not to mention, the Abyss Race was a foreign race with terrifying regenerative abilities. To them, even if they were heavily injured, it did not matter. They could easily recover. Therefore, it was best to kill a Abyss Race warrior in one blow. The physical body of this Abyss Race assassin in front of her seemed to be stronger than ordinary Abyss Race warriors. As Long Yu reconstructed his physical body, he estimated the strength of this Abyss Race assassin. In the end, he confirmed that this Abyss Race assassin's strength had definitely reached the standard of an ordinary seventh-rank ruler. As for its physical body and regenerative abilities, it surpassed that of an ordinary seventh-rank ruler. This thing was so terrifying. It was definitely one of the few strong opponents that Long Yu had encountered so far. Fortunately, Long Yu relied on the fifth-rank Devil Dust Heart to reconstruct his physical body. His recovery speed was not much slower than the Abyss Race assassin's. After a short incense stick's worth of time, Red Oriole was just about to be completely suppressed by the Abyss Race assassin. At this time, Long Yu had completely reconstructed his physical body. Prophet rank 9 Nether Divine characters bombarded the Abyss Race assassin. Unbounded Grasp. Long Yu used the 9 Nether Divine characters to use a high-grade unbounded martial skill. Even though there was a huge gap between their martial realms, this move still caused the Abyss Race assassin's metal body to tremble. Chapter 1428. However, the Abyss Race assassin's body only paused for a moment. After all, Long Yu's current martial realm was too low. It was too difficult for him to deal with a fifth-rank Sovereign Realm Abyss Race assassin. Moreover, this Abyss Race assassin was not an ordinary fifth-rank sovereign. Looks like this time, just like last time, I can only be a bystander, Long Yu thought to himself. In a battle of this level, his usefulness was extremely limited. Fortunately, he still had some other abilities. For example, the absolute space domain of the ancient Dragon Bone Tower could seal off the Abyss Race assassin's escape route. Moreover, with the Void Nether Dragon Blade, he could quickly catch up to the assassin and ensure that he could not escape. Coupled with Red Oriole's powerful deduction abilities, this Abyss Race assassin had no chance of escaping once he was stalled. Unfortunately, the fifth-rank Sovereign Realm Fire God Race expert that Long Yu had sealed in the ancient Dragon Bone Tower had not yet been transformed into a darkness creature and could not be used. Otherwise, this battle would have been a lot easier. Red Oriole used her dragon's heavenly grip to suppress the Abyss Race assassin for a moment, allowing her to recover. After all, she had gone through many trials at the Academy. Even when facing such a powerful Abyss Race assassin, Red Oriole didn't panic. Moonsong was still hiding inside the void nether dragon blade, and did not appear. She was waiting for an opportunity to strike. The moment a good opportunity appeared, it would be the Abyss Race assassin's death. Red Oriole had a lot of experience fighting other races. Right now, she could tell that she could not face this Abyss Race assassin head-on. Otherwise, she would not be his match. Therefore, she quickly began to use a roundabout strategy. She used all kinds of methods to delay the Abyss Race assassin. Blood-colored divine characters continuously condensed in the battlefield and were shattered by the Abyss Race assassin's violent physical body. No matter how hard Red Oriole tried, she could not trap the Abyss Race assassin for more than a breath's time. Fortunately, with Long Yu's help, Red Oriole did not fall into a disadvantage. However, if this continued, the situation would be very disadvantageous for them. Seeing that the situation wasn't looking good, Long Yu had an idea and released the 3 dark creatures that he had transformed earlier from the ancient dragon skeleton tower. Before Huang Xiaolong obtained the corpses of the 3 fire god race clansmen, he had stayed in Long Zitian's iron fortress for a few days. During that time, he had transformed the corpses of the 3 fire god race clansmen into dark creatures. Although these darkness creatures didn't have the combat experience they had when they were alive, they still had superior combat instincts. The fire god race elites that were able to come to the foreign race's battlefield, even if they died and turned into darkness creatures, their combat strength would still surpass a normal third phase dominator. Now, the 3 dark creatures didn't stop at all. They dashed straight towards the Abyss Tribe assassin. The 3 dark creatures surrounded the Abyss Tribe assassin, and the power of the 9 nether divine characters surged. These 3 dark creatures had been warriors of the fire god race when they were alive, and they had used the power of fire attribute divine text. But now that they had been transformed into dark creatures, their bodies contained the Revelation Level 9 nether divine text. In this respect, these 3 dark creatures were even stronger than when they were alive. However, they didn't have the martial techniques and divine abilities they had when they were alive, which became their weakness. The 3 dark creatures immediately turned the situation around. They teamed up with Red Oriole and firmly trapped the Abyss Tribe assassin. Of course, this was only for a moment. Even with 3 more helpers, Red Oriole was still facing a lot of pressure. The Abyss Tribe assassin didn't panic at all. His tough body glowed with a metallic luster as he dashed through the void. It was just a simple collision, but it instantly landed on the body of a dark creature. The terrifying force directly smashed the dark creature into pieces, and its pitch-black body scattered in all directions, turning into scattered netherworld divine runes power that scattered into the surrounding void. The other 2 dark creatures, under Long Yu's control, took the opportunity to launch their strongest attacks at the Abyss Tribe assassin. The 9 nether divine characters condensed into countless pitch-black beams of light that landed on the Abyss Tribe assassin's body. The surface of the Abyss Tribe assassin's body glowed with a metallic luster. It dimmed for a moment, but then it became even more resplendent. With a flash of metallic light, the Abyss Tribe assassin shot toward another dark creature like a cannonball. The 3 dark creatures were only able to buy some time for Red Oriole. They couldn't do any damage to the Abyss Race assassin at all. However, Long Yu wasn't discouraged. He continued to use all kinds of methods. While he summoned the 3 dark creatures, he also summoned a few 9 nether hunters. Almost 10 9 nether hunters were like walkers in the dark. They easily snuck to the Abyss Tribe assassin's side. Then, they each used the Heart Blade third cut. The machetes in their hands carried a strong mental attack that enveloped the Abyss Tribe assassin. The physical strength of the Abyss Tribe far surpassed that of any other race. Whether it was the human race or the monster race, they couldn't compare. However, their mental strength was their weakness. Even though Long Yu's martial arts realm was 5 levels lower than his opponent's, which was a world of difference, when the 9 Nether Hunters used the Heart Blade third cut, the mental blades landed on the Abyss Tribe Assassin's body, causing the Abyss Tribe Assassin's mind to fall into a trance again and again. Although it was just a trance, it was very useful in the battle. Red Oriole accurately grasped every opportunity. The blood-red divine characters condensed into a long whip. Then, while the Abyss Tribe Assassin's mind was in a trance, the blood-red whip landed on the weakest part of his body, causing the metallic luster on his body to dim again. It was impossible to kill the Abyss Tribe Assassin like this. However, Red Oriole and Long Yu still had a trump card. That was Moonsong, who was inside the Void Spirit Dragonblade's space. Their mission was to make the Abyss Tribe Assassin forget all other aspects of his vigilance. Then, they would hope that Moonsong would appear at the crucial moment and kill him in one blow. Therefore, no matter what, Long Yu had to work with Red Oriole to drag the Abyss Tribe Assassin into a bitter battle. Quietly, Long Yu's Berserker heavenly power began to stack on top of each other. The aura of a Berserker god descending into the world blossomed from Long Yu's body. In just a short period of time, the power he could erupt with Berserker god runes was 10 times greater than normal. Since it was so difficult to fight the Abyss Tribe Assassin, then he would use Battle Heaven power, a high-grade unbounded rank martial skill. As the Battle Heaven power increased, the Abyss Tribe Assassin would feel more and more pressure. Of course, for the time being, Long Yu still didn't dare to fight the Abyss Tribe Assassin head-on. He could only keep forming desolate shadow images and have them attack the Battle Fist Cannon at the Abyss Tribe Assassin. The Abyss Tribe Assassin relied on his strong body to take each wave of the Battle Fist Cannon head-on. He didn't dodge or evade at all. This situation made Long Yu very happy. Because the other party didn't dodge, he could stack up more Battle Heaven power. Once the Battle Heaven power reached a certain level, he would be able to fight the Abyss Tribe Assassin head-on. He might even be able to kill the Abyss Tribe Assassin in the end. However, it wasn't easy to stack up the Battle Heaven power. Long Yu had to hide his Battle Heaven power at all times, because if the Abyss Tribe Assassin sensed it, it was very likely that the Abyss Tribe Assassin would attack Long Yu first. At the moment, the Abyss Tribe Assassin didn't feel that Long Yu was a threat. Even though the descent of the Mad God had increased the power of his Battle God rune tenfold, the Abyss Tribe Assassin didn't think that Long Yu was a threat. On the contrary, because Red Oriole exploded with even more power, the Demon Blood 6 Wings awakening skills came one after another. Blood-red light flashed in the air, bombarding the Abyss Tribe Assassin. During this period of time, Red Oriole's power became stronger and stronger. Gradually, the Abyss Tribe Assassin felt the pressure, and it had to spend a lot of effort to deal with Red Oriole. The Abyss Tribe Assassin kept colliding with Red Oriole's body. The metallic light kept breaking through the blood-red light, appearing extremely domineering. However, Red Oriole relied on her nimble body and some kind of divine ability to use the Demon Blood 6 Wings to dodge the opponent's attack. According to this situation, the Abyss Tribe Assassin couldn't even touch Red Oriole's body. But Long Yu didn't stop at all. He kept forming ancient shadows and firing mad fist cannons at the Abyss Tribe Assassin. Although the Abyss Tribe Assassin kept chasing after Red Oriole, Long Yu's ancient shadows could still use Mad Battle God Walk. He instantly flashed to the opponent's side and punched. Every time he punched, the Battle Heaven power on Long Yu's body would increase by another level, doubling the power of his Battle God runes. However, Long Yu temporarily hid the fact that his Battle God runes were continuously increasing. He dodged and didn't dare to fight head-on. He kept harassing the Abyss Tribe Assassin. Under Long Yu's constant harassment, the Abyss Tribe Assassin became impatient. He kept using his tough body to smash the ancient shadows. Then, he raised his hand and a part of his body separated from his body. This was the metal liquid that Long Yu had seen before. The Abyss tribe was a foreign race. They weren't like the human race or the demon race, which had a complete body. Instead, they relied on their bodies to survive. They could split into different parts of the metal liquid, and each part had its own life. Now, this Abyss tribe assassin was impatient with Long Yu's harassment. He finally started to activate the metal liquid. He wanted to use the metal liquid that took up 20% of his power to kill Long Yu. The metal liquid flew out of the Abyss tribe assassin's body and instantly accelerated to the limit. Like a metal cannonball, it landed on Long Yu's body. This situation gave Long Yu a fright. But the good thing was that he had experience fighting the Abyss tribe before. He was already prepared for this move, so he was able to react in time. Chapter 1429. The water absolute beginning power wrapped around him. In that instant, the Nether Void Dragon Blade teleported him hundreds of meters away, successfully dodging the opponent's metal liquid cannonball. This metal liquid was separated from the opponent's body. The opponent didn't need to spend much effort to control it because this metal liquid had its own life and thoughts. This was the terrifying aspect of the Abyss race. An individual could split into many parts to fight at the same time. Besides the Abyss race, no other race had this ability. Ancient primordial shadows like Long Yu or 9 Nether Hunters, although they could create the effect of many against few, in reality, they weren't very useful. That was because the primordial afterimage and the Netherworld Hunter were undoubtedly too weak when compared to Long Yu's own strength. They were basically not even a tenth of Long Yu's strength. However, the metal liquid that the Abyss race had separated was different. Even 20% of the Abyss race's power was at least 70% of the Abyss race's power. This was the terrifying aspect of the Abyss race. The Abyss race warrior that Long Yu had fought before was only 2 levels higher than Long Yu. Thus, the suppression in this aspect wasn't very obvious. But now, Long Yu was facing 20% of the metal liquid alone, and it seemed like he wasn't able to do as he wished. All of Long Yu's ancient desolate shadows and 9 Serenity's hunters were instantly blasted into smithereens by the metal liquid cannonball. Then, the metal liquid cannonball continued to fly towards Long Yu, who was 100 miles away. As the metal liquid came, it slowly turned into a body of the Abyss race. However, it was just a little smaller than the original body. It was as if the Abyss race had given birth to a son. Long Yu couldn't help but wonder if the Abyss race's reproduction method was like this. After all, this method of reproduction was quite efficient. After all, the little one that was separated had the intelligence of the original body. It also had a certain level of the original body's power and power. It was much easier to cultivate than the human race or the monster race. However, Long Yu didn't know how the Abyss race reproduced. Perhaps he would find out in the future. But right now, Long Yu's biggest problem was dealing with this metal liquid clone. As for the Abyss race assassin, after the metal liquid was separated, its power was reduced to 90%. This made Red Oriole a little easier, but not by much. Red Oriole kept attacking the Abyss race assassin with blood-colored divine characters. Because the Abyss race assassin had spent some effort on Long Yu, Red Oriole was able to push him back a little. The metallic light on his body was even dimmer than before. However, this dimming only lasted for a moment. In the blink of an eye, the Abyss clan assassin returned to his perfect form. Most importantly, his figure suddenly disappeared from the void. This situation dumbfounded Red Oriole. She remembered that the Abyss race assassin's concealment ability was very strong. Unless she used her divination ability, she wouldn't be able to find the other party's traces. Now that the Abyss race assassin was hiding in the void, it had clearly discovered that Red Oriole and Long Yu weren't as easy to deal with as it thought. It was ready to use its trump card. This Abyss race assassin was called the Abyss race assassin because its assassination skills were extremely terrifying. The two of them had already experienced its assassination skills. If Red Oriole hadn't suddenly divined its position and coincidentally reminded them, the Abyss Race assassin's first attack would have succeeded. If Long Yu hadn't dodged in time, not only would his physical body have exploded, but even his demon dust heart would have been heavily damaged. If that had happened, it would have been a disaster for Long Yu. Right now, Red Oriole couldn't put all her attention into divining. If she did, the Abyss Race assassin might suddenly appear behind her and attack her. If she was suddenly hit by the Abyss Race assassin, Red Oriole didn't have a demon dust heart like Long Yu's, which could quickly reconstruct her physical body. If she was hit, Long Yu's side would lose a fighting force. Even if Moon Song came out again, she might not be able to kill the Abyss Race assassin. Long Yu was dealing with the Abyss Race assassin made of liquid metal. It was like dealing with a fourth-phase Sovereign Realm Abyss Race assassin. The pressure was great, but Long Yu didn't transfer this pressure to Red Oriole. This was his responsibility in the first place. This part of the liquid metal definitely had to be dealt with by Long Yu. Ancient desolate afterimages were continuously condensed by Long Yu. At this moment, Long Yu had unknowingly stacked 45 layers of Berserker Heaven power. With the addition of Berserker God's Descent, he had stacked 15 layers. In total, he had 60 times the power of the Berserker God's text. 60 times the power of the Berserker God's text was enough for Long Yu to kill some third-phase sovereigns, and even ordinary fourth-phase sovereigns. However, it wasn't enough to deal with the Abyss Race assassin's liquid metal doppelganger. Therefore, Long Yu still didn't reveal the layers of his Berserker Heaven power. He only maintained his original fighting style, using ancient desolate afterimages to circle around the Abyss Race assassin. Long Yu kept using Berserker God's Step. This movement technique was pretty good. He could quickly move to the side, and he didn't need to use spatial divine characters. The opponent wouldn't be able to see where he was moving. Long Yu purposely lured the metal doppelganger far away. The metal doppelganger didn't care and chased after Long Yu. Although this metal body had its own intellect and life, it was still under the orders of the main body, and that was to kill Long Yu, that fellow from the human race. Since this was the case, before the Abyss Race assassin's main body gave any other orders, the metal doppelganger would use all kinds of methods to carry out this mission. Therefore, the metal doppelganger chased after Long Yu. Long Yu could teleport thousands of feet with each instant shift, and the metal doppelganger chased after him. This situation caused Long Yu to feel joy in his heart. If the opponent continued to chase after him, it would be very advantageous for him. However, Long Yu was in a very dangerous situation. If he wasn't careful, he could be hit by the metal doppelganger. Then, the terrifying power would destroy his body. If the opponent destroyed his body again, the Abyss Race assassin wouldn't allow Long Yu to reconstruct his body unless someone bought him time. But now that Long Yu had lured the Abyss Race assassin away, he was cutting off his own path of retreat. Even if he needed reinforcements, Moon Song and Red Oriole wouldn't be able to make it in time. Moon Song was left behind by Long Yu and the Void Nether Dragonblade in Red Oriole's direction. Little Void and Red Oriole worked together to restrain the Abyss Race assassin's main body. Little Void kept casting Void Burial, forcing the Abyss Race assassin's main body to move in a strange way. Every time the Abyss Race assassin wanted to kill Red Oriole, Void Burial would always erupt at a critical point, forcing the Abyss Race assassin to retreat. Even the Abyss Race assassin, who had an extremely strong body, couldn't resist the Void Burial cast by the Void Nether Dragonblade. However, Void Burial was too difficult to hit. Although the Abyss Race assassin was very powerful, if the opponents saw that Void Burial was about to erupt, they would definitely have enough time to dodge. Unless someone forcibly controlled the Void Burial, there was no way to hit the opponent. With Little Void and Red Oriole working together, the Abyss Race assassin's main body became extremely violent. In its eyes, whether it was Long Yu, Red Oriole, or the Void Nether Dragon Blade, they were all small things that couldn't withstand a single blow, but they had managed to hold it back for so long. If the other geniuses of the Abyss race knew about this, wouldn't they laugh at it? Therefore, the Abyss race assassin prepared to deal a fatal blow. Buzz. The Abyss race assassin's body emitted the sound of metal scraping against each other. Then, its speed exploded to the limit as it headed straight for Red Oriole. This time, its speed reached an unprecedented level. Red Oriole didn't even have time to dodge. Although Void Burial had erupted, the Abyss race assassin's main body didn't care about it at all. It wanted to kill Red Oriole first. Red Oriole was in danger. There was no other way. Moonsong, who had been hiding inside the Void Nether Dragon Blade, could only come out now. The power of the starry divine characters poured down like a waterfall, descending directly in front of Red Oriole and aiming at the attacking Abyss race assassin. Awakening skill, Galaxy Waterfall. The Abyss race assassin could feel the sharpness of Moonsong's attack. It knew that even with its physical strength, it would be seriously injured if it took Moonsong's attack head-on, especially when the Void Burial flow was still erupting in its original spot. Its forceful attack would definitely put it in a dangerous situation. Moonsong's sudden appearance made the Abyss race assassin a little flustered. However, it also knew that this situation was most likely orchestrated by the humans and the monster race. It couldn't escape, so its only chance of survival was to kill all of them. Even if it had to suffer injuries, the Abyss race assassin had to kill Red Oriole first. Its determination was extremely firm. A metallic streak of light shot out of the void, instantly cutting through the Void Burial's Genesis power vortex. It met Moonsong's awakening skill, Galaxy Waterfall, and rushed directly in front of Red Oriole. This speed was simply too fast. Red Oriole wanted to dodge, but she was unable to do so. In the end, she was still too slow. But at this time, Long Yu suddenly flashed, appearing next to Red Oriole from an unknown distance. Then, he grabbed Red Oriole with one hand and activated the Book of Shadows. The power of the world sucked Red Oriole into Long Yu's small world. The Book of Shadows had turned Long Yu into nothingness. Long Yu, who was in a state of nothingness, directly dodged the powerful attack of the Abyss Clan assassin's main body. Then, he flashed to the side and unleashed the Berserker Fist Cannon, bringing with it a terrifying void wave. 100 times the power of the Berserker divine characters. Void Burial, Galaxy Waterfall, and Berserker Fist Cannon. The Abyss race assassin was caught off guard and fell into the encirclement of these three terrifying skills. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.